Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I am the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It is Forcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1155 of the War News Stream. It's good to see you all once again after our small little hiatus and trip around the United States. And tonight we have massive news to cover. There have been massive explosions detonating in central Moscow today. Also, Ukraine launched a renewed drone strike on Russian sites, and U.S. officials pressure Zelenskyy to end the war ASAP. And we have a ton of news to cover today, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we are going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world. Actually, it's the past 48 hours with a slight annotation for about the past 5 days, as Enforcer Matt and me have been traveling the entirety of the continental United States. That is right, folks, from coast to coast, from the great mountains near to the area of the Baker-Snoqualmie National Forest at Seattle, and all the way down to the Everglades, taking Shody to the swamp. We have been from every single corner of the United States over the past 5 days, and have finally returned after speaking to the people and giving an address, a State of the Union of a sorts, to the state of the nation and the different areas of it. We are absolutely excited to be able to get back into the news coverage with all of y'all, because over those past few days, major things have happened, both good and bad in some ways. One great thing that I can say happened is that the Hot Dog Man's channel shut down for good. Hey, like no joke, it actually did. Actually shut down for good in the middle of us flying right over that guy's shitty hometown. Nevertheless, we also were able to hear that the Russian Federation has seen an ammo detonation of the largest caliber of the entire war at the Gral 51st Arsenal outside of Moscow. We were able to hear that this explosion was so large it may as well be considered nuclear in scale, and it appears that the damage has been significant to the Russian Federation's fighting forces, and not only that, their ability to continue to supply and support the Russian armed forces inside of Ukraine due to the loss of this arsenal may be greatly affected. Meanwhile, explosions have also been heard today just hours ago inside of the Moscow city area, near to the area, I believe, of the Sentry Tower, if I'm correct. I'll get the name correct on that here in a little bit, because I know that that is incorrect off of the bat. Nevertheless, there was an explosion that did occur, and from what we're getting on initial reports, it does appear to be incredibly close to the vicinity of the area where we saw Russia Today and other Russian media sources post a video of a Russian military drone operator operating a drone from inside of one of the high-rises. Meanwhile, we have also been able to hear that the United States of America and the Russian Federation, along with the state of Ukraine, have continued in last-ditch attempts to be able to create a peace effort, but nevertheless, it appears to be falling apart, and it appears that the state of Ukraine is once again meeting the President of the United States' ire due to claims that the President of Ukraine has sabotaged the peace negotiations at the last minute, while other critics are claiming that the President of the United States' peace proposal with the Russian Federation and Ukraine was paramount to appeasement. We have also been able to hear significant news inside the front lines of Ukraine that the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to conduct counteroffensives in most areas, being able to take ground back from the Russian Federation inside of Sudzha after the Russian Federation was able to move into the oblast approximately several days ago. We have also been able to hear that the state of Ukraine has been able to conduct successful counteroffensives in the area of Pokrovsk as well. And we have also been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces have been holding the Russians at Chasiv Yar, and counteroffensive efforts are still continuing strongly inside the city of Toretsk. Outside of this, the trade war between the United States and China has continued, as China has returned all Boeing aircraft to be delivered to aircraft companies of the People's Republic of China back to the United States of America. The United States of America is currently stating that a negotiated settlement of the trade war could take approximately 2 to 3 years at a minimum at this moment, and not only that, we are also hearing that the People's Republic of China is continuing to pull out the heavy-hitting guns as the United States of America and China continue to be dead set on this trade war. Meanwhile, the Republic of India and the Islamic Republic of Pakistan appear to be going to near blows today, as a massacre was conducted inside the Jammu and Kashmir region of the contested Himalayan heights, or more so the area also known as the Kashmir region, where nearly 40 to 50 Indian citizens were gunned down in an attack that appears to be sponsored by the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, at least allegedly, according to the Indian government. At this moment, Indian nationals, or actually Pakistani nationals, have been given 48 hours to depart the Republic of India, and we are also seeing that India is receding age-old treaties between Pakistan and the Republic of India, as it appears that both sides may be mobilizing for a possible confrontation along the Pakistan-Indian border. There is a load that has been going on, really, to be entirely honest, over the past 5 days that we've been gone. Literally everything that could ever happen happened. And oh, by the way, I forgot to mention one thing that I would try and make a joke on, but I have seen that many people have been quite serious about this, and I, of course, want to convey the news. Y'all probably have heard it over days ago, but the Pope has also passed away as well while we were gone. Literally everything that could have happened while we were gone. Would not expect that, but nevertheless, a pretty interesting thing on top of everything else that's happened over the past 5 days. Nevertheless, we have loads of news, and also, really quickly, I have to tell y'all this. I don't know if y'all can tell, but I have actually picked up a very bad case of the allergies. It is so bad, as a matter of fact, that it has been hours since we got off the plane. It's been about 4, and my ears still have not popped. I actually really can't hear myself talking. I really can't hear Matthew talking. I really can't hear anything right now. And at this given moment right now, a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God, Enforcer, if that's the case, your eardrums could burst at any moment, and you could have ruptured eardrums. And yes, that's actually true. That could happen at any moment. That's like the worst case scenario. But nevertheless, we are dedicated to getting the news out to y'all, and even if my eardrums are about to explode, we are still going to be getting the news out to y'all nevertheless. Also, by the way,
actually, people could notice it. Actually, so many people have been asking me, why does the Enforcer sound so different? And it's not a phony Enforcer; it's the real deal. It's just that he is slightly ill. So hopefully, it's not spreading to me. Hopefully, it is just allergies, and hopefully, it'll go away.
It's allergies. Just for those of y'all to know, I got it in Florida. I was allergic to the swamp. Apparently, something in the swamp. So I got bad allergies. I also have to give a huge thanks before we start the show. Just one more little shout out. I want to give a huge shout out to American Airlines for being the worst airline of the year. Enforcer nominated number 1. We will be getting to that in later on after the news is over. But we had an absolutely incredible experience with American Airlines today. From the bottom to the top, literally everyone involved in the airlines sucks. Like actually no joke. Like absolutely terrible. Like it's so bad. I actually am encouraged nearly to make an entire video about it as a standalone on the channel because it was that bad. I've never seen anything that bad before, but I would do it. Nevertheless, It is time for us to get on into the news, and we have gotten loads of news today. Moving on up into the area of Moscow, or more so the area right outside of Moscow, near to the town of Kersach, we have been able to see probably one of the most significant actions of the Ukrainian armed forces in recent times as they hit the 51st Grau arsenal. Some people are like, what is the Grau? And a lot of people would be curious to know that. I actually really do not know what Grau stands for, but Grau is largely a detachment of the Russian Armed Forces Russian Federation's munitions and storage personnel that are able to house and contain within pretty much ammo mega facilities most of the Russian Federation's supplies, ammunitions, and explosives. This facility right here is actually the one that we were going to be showing here in a second, or we're going to be showing the deletion of it, because it is gone as of right now. It is right outside the city of Kersach. It's also been called the Kersach Refinery by some, and it appears that at this point, the arsenal no longer exists. Some of y'all will be going, well, why would you say that? I mean, that seems to be a little bit of an overstatement. Well, it's because of this video. This is a video that was actually taken from somewhere around Kersach, the town that is right next door to the Grau Arsenal, the 51st Grau Arsenal, and this is the video that came out of the explosion.
Damn,
it was near
man.
nuclear.
That is crazy. That's insane, actually.
So, crazily enough, Matthew, people have been trying to estimate the size of this explosion. And this may have actually taken the place for the largest non-nuclear explosion in history. It's either second or first place for that prize right there.
Like, are we talking about like kilotons? Like, perhaps?
We're talking this is very close to the Halifax explosion of 1915, I believe, which is the largest non-nuclear explosion that ever happened in history. This is actually getting incredibly close to that in terms of explosive yield. We still don't know exactly. It's incredibly hard to take these kinds of guesses, but just based off of the sheer size of the explosion, which you can actually see that the fireball expanded well over what appears to be a mile in width, we have to assume that this has to be one of the largest non-nuclear explosions that has ever happened in human history. Just to explain really quickly how this happened, this actually is the work of the Ukrainian armed forces. This isn't really a rumor or more so an unsupported claim. It actually was a Ukrainian attack. Much like every other Russian ammo facility in the Russian Federation and all of the other Grau arsenals, the 51st Grau arsenal does not have a single hardened shelter inside of it, and when it does, they're incredibly seldom. We have seen that they have been attempting to modernize the Grau arsenal here at the 51st facility, but once again, there are a lot of unhardened shelters that munitions are being stored in throughout the facility. And hardened shelters only have a minimal amount of efficacy, especially when placed near to soft structures that would be easy to detonate or still holding a large amount of munitions. From what we've been able to tell, a great deal of the facility has been destroyed. We were able to see some satellite footage from today, actually, showing us the Grau Arsenal before and after. We can actually see the Grau Arsenal right here before the explosions, and this is what it appears to be afterwards. Most of the hardened shelters, about half of them, or about 60% of them, have ended up completely exploding. And we match those up, those heat sources, with the map. Pretty much every single soft shelter on the facility has exploded, and it also appears that some of the hardened shelters within the central area of the facility also went up in the explosion as well. The damage appears to be more so minor around the areas of the southeastern side of the compound, along with the northwestern side of the compound, where there's a great concentration of hardened shelters, but it does appear that this facility may have taken a death knell blow, at least in terms of its ammo storage abilities. Talking in that tone really starts getting it going. Hopefully it doesn't get too bad, but nevertheless, this is probably going to be one of the most devastating hits that we have ever seen so far to Russian munition storage abilities throughout the entirety of the war, even more so than other Grau arsenals that have been hit, or more so fixed, quote unquote, in the past. The Russian Federation may be seeing that their ammunition stores and supplies that's going to start getting worse, are going to be greatly diminished over time, and we are most likely going to be seeing that the Russian Federation here within the very near future will be undergoing some kind of an ammo shortage. The ammo shortage may last for several months, depending on how long it takes for Russian war industry to be able to replace the lost shells, but once again, the Russian war industry has not really been able to keep up, and the Russian Federation has largely been relying on North Korean imports of munitions, and possibly Chinese imports of munitions, to be able to keep the Russian war machine running inside of Ukraine. For this reason, We are largely assuming at this point that the Russian Federation may be entering an inevitable shell shortage because of the explosion of the 51st Grau arsenal. Nevertheless, a load of people have been talking about the impacts that were made at the Grau arsenal, but even more people have been talking about a mysterious attack or an explosion that occurred inside of Moscow today. Not a lot of details are known about it, and we really don't even have a lot of details about it here on the channel ourselves, but we do at least have video and picture evidence to confirm the incident. Inside of the beautiful city of Moscow, which is the largest metropolis in the Russian Federation and houses about 10% of the Russian Federation's entire population within the city's confines, sits the only nice area of the city, Moscow City, which is equivalent to that one strip of street in West Palm Beach. But nevertheless, that is this area. And when you look right out here, I always got to show people this every single time we show this on the show. When you literally look a couple of blocks over, there are true slums out here. Here they are. And there's the skyscrapers right behind them. The Russians didn't even have enough money to actually build out anything beyond the Moscow city area itself, and it does appear that the Russian Federation has taken a little bit of a hit to that area today, as we were able to see that a massive fire broke out after a reported explosion near to the Evolution Tower. They should call
that tower oddly looks like the place where they filmed that guy flying that drone remotely in Ukraine. It oddly looks like the same building the guy was filming out the window from.
It actually does look like it, and as a matter of fact, this is actually about a block away or dead on to the exact location where that guy was. So we don't really know what caused the explosion, but it may have been a pro-Ukrainian force, an anti-Russian force, or the actual Ukrainians themselves that tried to blow up a Russian drone operations facility inside of the Moscow city area, which we can also see the smoke rising from the explosion right here.
That's a pretty serious smoke plume right there from simply one car going off. That's pretty large.
It really is an impressive plume. We also were able to see another clip here from the ground, and also another explosion, a secondary explosion. And then moving on from that clip and into our next one, we also got to see the fire from another angle. Well, you see everyone just filming the fire after the explosion occurred, but once again, we really don't know who was behind that attack or why they did it. It just doesn't really make like a lot of sense, at least in the full story yet. All we know is that there was an explosion inside the Moscow city area, and it does appear that the Russian Federation may have had one of its possible drone operating facilities within the area of Moscow City being directly targeted by some sort of a pro-Ukrainian or anti-Russian actor. Those two were actually a lot more different than you would believe. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this? And what are you thinking about it as well? And please feel free to filibuster, Matthew, because I'm going to be trying to get some water or something else that might be able to soothe my aching bones. So I will be right back while we see what people are thinking about this and what are you thinking about it as well.
All right, so we did run a poll on this particular situation right here, and the question says, a massive explosion took place in Moscow today where a alleged drone center was seen recently that we saw a few days ago before we left on the stream, and what are your thoughts? About 56% said it was targeting the drone center that we saw just a couple days back, while 30% said it was a targeted assassination, and about 4% said it was a real accident going down. And I would say, honestly, considering how large that smoke plume was coming out of the garage of that building and how close it was to that alleged drone center, I think the Ukrainians might have done something, either sent someone in to sabotage the place and cause the explosion, or maybe send some type of munition underground one way or another, maybe in a truck, car, or whatever, to set that off and cause that major fire. I think their goal was to send a message to Russia and let them know that they are going to target Moscow if they do launch attacks with these remote drone centers from these high-rise buildings. They're not going to let that go. They are going to actually go after those places and start treating them as actual military targets. And that was something we discussed as well on the stream before we left, was would that that be a legit military target since civilians are in the area? And it looks like if this was a Ukrainian strike, which I would assume it probably is, I would say it looks like they're taking it like a military target. So I'm actually with the 54%. I think they were targeting that building, or at least one close by to send a message. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I believe that it may have been a target of the drone center that we saw in film, literally the day that we left here to go on that gallivanting journey across the United States. I actually think that that was more so the case, because it does appear that the explosion was incredibly close to the geolocated center where that drone operations center may have been inside the city of Moscow. And so it does appear that it may have been a pro-Ukrainian or a Ukrainian coordinated attack onto a Russian drone operational facility within the city of Moscow. And I know what a lot of people are going to be saying. There's a little bit of an argument that comes up whenever things like these happen. Oh, Enforcer, that's technically almost a war crime, or it is a war crime, because the Ukrainians are now targeting civilian areas in an attempt to be able to strike at the Russian military. There is actually a little bit of a difference in between it being a war crime and it really not being a war crime. There's actually a little bit of a gray area here. You see, it is a war crime to deliberately strike civilian targets without any confirmation that there are military forces around those civilian targets. However, if there is a military operative working amongst citizenry, it actually is technically not really a war crime to target those civilian buildings to hit those military operatives that are operating inside the building. It's a very it's a very bad thing to do, really, honestly, morally. But the thing is that a lot of people don't know about that because a lot of people are used to the U.S. rules of engagement that we're seeing in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the U.S. rules of engagement are actually considered quite strict. U.S. rules of engagement in Iraq and Afghanistan dictated that the military could only fire onto an enemy combatant force, and this is, of course, technically, this didn't happen all the time, if the enemy combatant force was not operating among civilians, and if there was a high risk of a great deal of collateral, then they would not be attacked. Usually that rule was somewhat applied, somewhat not applied, depending on the situation. But nevertheless, that was the U.S. rules of engagement at the time, and a lot of people believe, because that was the common rules of engagement that the United States had for about 20 years in the Middle East, that that is what the Geneva Convention states, and that's not necessarily the case. As far as Ukrainian and Russian rules of engagement are concerned, their rules of engagement follow the Geneva Convention to the letter. If there is a military operative working among civilians, technically that becomes a military target. It's a little bit of a gray area sort of thing because it can create a great deal of collateral, but nevertheless, the Ukrainians, considering that they're fighting the Russian Federation, which has openly used citizens as human shields for an incredibly long time, may be in the Israel conundrum, where they may really have no choice but to strike at these targets and hope to hit the military operatives amongst the civilians, if that is the case.
It really does seem like a gray area, though, because like we were discussing before we left, it's sort of debatable whether or not that would be a military target. Now, once again, I see some people in the chat saying, well, Russia's committing a war crime by launching these drone remote attacks from a civilian building, and I would agree with that. That is certainly not a moral thing to do, but once again, Russia's not moral whatsoever. They're fighting the war on, like, street rule terms, and they're doing that still right now. So Ukraine can either ignore that fact that they're launching drone attacks from a civilian building in literally a high-rise in Moscow, in the high-end area of town, or they can try to attack it like they've done right now. So it's gray area. I wouldn't say they're wrong or right for doing it. They kind of have some leeway here. But once again, I can see arguments for both sides. But generally speaking, though, they have to strike back. And I think they're doing that we saw there in the video.
I would have to say, at this point, they really have no choice because, like, you know, what choice are the Russians really giving them in these kinds of situations? So they have to take the opportunities when the opportunities present themselves. But moving on from that, we were also able to hear that at the same time the Grau arsenal went up in flames, and also, okay, I usually try and mute on those, sorry folks, Matthew's getting a good laugh out of that one, but we were able to hear that according to the Moscow Times in Russia, which posted this post on Twitter today, which went to one of their articles, that according to Putin, Russia needs to prepare for new wars and continue expanding military production. This is once again showing us that it appears that the Russian Federation is starting to move closer and closer towards preparing for a larger war with the entirety of Western Europe, or largely the European area of NATO. It does appear that the Russian Federation is continuing to make that incredibly clear, that they are looking at westwards expansion into the area of Eastern Europe, and they are continuing on with that plan. Even Putin is now publicly saying it, which is making it clear that if the Russians achieve their aims in Ukraine, their aims are not going to be stopping at Ukraine, and they're going to continue to expand into the rest of Eastern Europe if it's possible. Nevertheless, it does appear that a lot of people have been talking about that, and hopefully we'll be able to get y'all's opinions on that here in the future.
Yes, it's coming. It's coming. It's literally being typed up as we speak.
Good. I was wondering, because I was like, dang, dude, I was like, there isn't a poll yet. Honestly, that was kind of a quick turnaround for a poll, but nevertheless, I'm trying to figure out moments where I don't have to talk too much, so that way I'm not going to start, coughing up lungs here. But moving on from that and into the area of Naberezhny Chelny, we also were able to see that the Russians had several Sorry, everyone, that is a misquoted clip right there. The Russians did get hit in Naberezhny Chelny. Unfortunately, I posted the wrong clip to that area, so for that reason, I will not be able to show you all that or really report on that as far as the news. Nevertheless, there was an attack at Naberezhny Chelny, but considering we have no video or picture evidence, I really cannot report that and, tell you all to just trust my word on that. We always have to have video and picture evidence to back up the statements and claims that we're making. Moving on from that, though, we finally do have a question for all of y'all, and it was just thrown up. Like I was kind of coughing there a second ago. But nevertheless, Putin says today that Russia needs to prepare for new wars soon. And what does he mean by this? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So, of course, Putin is big and bold with words. He's been big and bold the entire time of the war, but he's also been losing the war the entire time as well. So I guess his words didn't really amount to much. Also, remember the 3-day statement. That didn't turn out to be true either. But now he's telling his people they need to prepare for new wars. And that's not really clear what that means. It's very vague. But, of course, that does carry some implications with it that the West needs to prepare for as well. So what do you think that Putin means by that statement? 49% said he wants to attack the Baltics, while 30% said he wants to scare the West, and 19% said he is actually prepping for World War III. And on this one, I would have to say that since the intel reports that the West has been receiving have been saying that Putin is preparing to expand the war beyond Ukraine, it's been saying that for years now. And now Putin's openly telling his military to prepare for new wars. I would say it's pretty obvious what's about to happen here. He is preparing to attack the Baltics in case things start going more sideways between the U.S. and Russia. He's preparing to take it a step further and attack the Baltics, and basically probably around the same time that China wants to invade Taiwan would be my assumption. So I think he is going to try to go for that, and he's now openly telling his people that, so now the West can hear it in the wide open. Now, whether or not the West takes that for the threat that it actually is another story entirely, because right now the U.S. officials appear to be thinking that Putin's operating in good faith, which obviously he's not, but we know better than that. So I'm with the 48%. I think he's going to go for it, and I think that's what the statement was for. But Enforcer, what say you?
Also, I would have to say that I believe that the Russian Federation is going to move on into attacking the Baltics. I'd have to agree with Matthew on that, because it has been made clear for years by direct statements from Putin. It's not anything that's just supposed. It's been directly stated that he intends on pushing the Russian Federation westwards into the remainder of Eastern Europe. According to Putin, and largely the Russian mindset that's been pushed forward into the present day, the Russian Federation views themselves as the liberator and rulers of Eastern Europe, for the large part from the Nazi Germans. They don't view that any other single way, at least on an official metric. So for these reasons, they're obviously going to continue to expand westwards, especially if they're already working on Ukraine, and especially they see that NATO is scared of confrontation, kind of like we're already starting to show right now. It emboldens them and lets them know that maybe they can take on the Baltics or Poland as an isolated singular nation where they may stand a small chance of getting some concessions or winning, versus the other hand, where we could see that the Russian Federation faces a unified NATO and loses tremendously and then moves into a nuclear conflict. That appears to be the case at this moment. And I'd largely have to say that I would have to agree with the great majority of folks, the 48%, that stated that Putin is making it quite clear that he's wanting to move on into the Baltics. Nevertheless,
isn't it quite crazy though? Like on another note, real quick before we move on, isn't it crazy that the U.S. is currently blaming Zelenskyy for not wanting to end the war, and meanwhile Putin is out here instructing his military to prepare for new wars? Not only is he not ending the Ukraine war, he's not actually negotiating in good faith, which we've been saying for months now, but now he's also telling them to get ready for some new ones too, which is the complete opposite of the idea that Putin is looking for peace. What type of peace-minded person says, let's prepare to start some new ones? Let's kick off a new bloody conflict conflict with someone else, potentially with NATO, which would eventually evolve into World War III. Who would say that? That's actually peace loving. It's just a complete joke.
It really is, honestly. Like we're going to get into that later on the night, everyone, because I know that's a big thing that a lot of people have been talking about today, and we're going to get into it in the most apolitical way that we can. Of course, we're trying to remain within our no politics rule. But Matthew's got a good point. The Russian Federation is clearly aggressive. Why in the world is the Russian Federation preparing for future wars when the United States is saying that they are a peace-loving country that doesn't like war? Why are they preparing for future wars? And why are they preparing for offensive ones at that? Because that's what they're getting ready for. They're not saying that this is national defense. The Russians are saying we need to get ready to start more wars. That's what Putin said for the large part. So it is once again showing us that the Russian Federation is not necessarily a country with good intentions, or at least their leader is certainly not someone with good intentions. Nevertheless, speaking of that, I guess it is a good time to move on into the diplomatic negotiations or developments that we've heard about on Ukraine today. And I hope that everyone understands. I'm going to have to get a little bit quieter. I really can't hear myself at this point, but I'm going to keep going. Hopefully it sounds good in the meantime, because talking at that high volume is starting to get me to where I'm hacking up my lung. I'm trying to mute my microphone so that we all don't hear that too much, but if I keep going at that pace, I'm not going to be able to survive the night. So with that,
have you ever considered like leaning over a little bit to try to clear up the lungs a little bit?
No, because I'm already doing that, and it's not working.
That was a joke. That was a joke. I think some people got it, but I think we went over to Forrester's head.
Yeah, well, a little bit, because I'm trying to focus on not coughing my lungs up. And also I got milk, and the milk is not helping. So,
he needs some milk.
He needs some milk, and I got some, and then it's not working. And honestly, I think I need like some sort of a hot tea or something like that, which I'll try and make up after the stream. But for now, I think I'm just going to have to try and do this. Nevertheless, moving on into the diplomatic developments that we were able to hear about today, for the large part, with the United States, Ukraine, and Russia, we were able to hear a direct statement by the President of the United States on Ukraine. And I have to make sure to back this up with a load of diplomatic developments that we've heard of over the past few days, and then read the statement, and we're going to analyze it in the most apolitical way we possibly can. I do want to put this out there really quickly, because I know that a lot of people like to try and make it political. This channel is apolitical. If you're a really political person, I recommend that you go watch The Young Turks if you're a Democrat, or Charlie Kirk if you're a Republican. Those seem to be some of the most vogue voices at this point in those categories. This channel avoids getting into apolitical discussions, so we do not condemn political parties, political leaders, or anyone else in between. However, the channel does stand for pro-American and pro-Western interests. And in the sake of those interests, we have a certain criteria on this channel that we believe is pushing and forwarding American interest and Western interests around the world, and are benefiting the American citizenry at the heart of those decisions. So with that in mind, I want to make sure to put that out there, so that way we do not have a load of people trying to turn this into a political thing and get onto a political soapbox, which is going to happen anyways. But, nevertheless, I just want to make sure to put that disclaimer out there so that we did our fair dues. Nevertheless, earlier today, we were able to hear that the United States of America has largely caved in to the Russian demands and are attempting to pressure the Ukrainians into accepting them so far. To explain to y'all what is going on, at least at this point, the United States of America has stated that they would recognize the sovereignty of Crimea. They would also force the Ukrainians to do that. They would pause the current front lines where it is right now. There would be no peacekeepers in Ukraine. Ukraine would not be allowed into NATO. And also the Ukrainians would have to, I believe, if I heard correctly, possibly hold elections either right when the war ends or somewhere during that time. Those have been the demands that have been made. The state of Ukraine has refused those demands, stating that they are wildly unfair and largely leaning directly into the Russians' interests, or largely the Russian demands. And we were able to see that the President of the United States then made a statement, I believe it was on Truth Social or somewhere, about this, and this was the full statement. So I want to make sure to read it in its entirety, and then we're going to address it. So,
would you like me to read it?
Sure, if you would like to.
So it says, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is boasting on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that, quote unquote, Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about here. And this statement is very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia, in that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Hussein Obama, full name there, government name. and is not even a point of discussion. Nobody's asking Zelenskyy to recognize Crimea as Russian territory, but if he wants Crimea, why didn't they fight for it 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia without a shot being fired? Also, the area also houses, for many years before the Obama handover, major Russian submarine bases. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that makes it so difficult to settle the war. He has nothing to boast about, and the situation for Ukraine is dire, and he can have peace or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. And I have nothing to do with Russia, but I have much to do with wanting to save, on average, 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week who are dying for no reason whatsoever, and the statement made by Zelenskyy today will do nothing but prolong the quote-unquote killing field, and nobody wants that, and we are very close to a deal, but the man with quote-unquote no cards to play should now finally get it done. And I look forward to being able to help Ukraine and Russia get out of this complete and total mess that would never have started if I were president.
Now, the big thanks to Matthew for reading that and let me have a bit of a vocal break there. But this was a statement that was made directly by the president right after the Ukrainians directly rejected the peace proposal that the United States is now trying to push onto them. Now, with that in mind, I do have to make it clear that we're going to remain as apolitical as possible on this on the channel, and I also ask once again that everyone remains as apolitical as possible in the chat about this. If you like the president and what he's doing, that's great. We really don't want to know. If you don't like the president, you don't like what he's doing, well, actually, if you like what he's doing or if you don't like what he's doing, we would like to know that. But if you like him because he's a Republican or you hate him because he's a Republican, we really don't want to know, because that's really none of this channel's business. Y'all go vote how y'all want to in the next 4 years. Nevertheless, though, I do want to make it a little bit clear what our stance is currently on those statements and the proposition that's almost being pushed onto the Ukrainians at this point. Peace, in its own respect, is a very admirable sort of a thing to pursue. The idea that wars and conflicts are not ravaging across the face of the planet, killing thousands of millions of people, is, of course, a thing that many people would like to achieve, and many people would like to see an enduring peace that would last throughout the world, where people are not constantly suffering from the duresses of war. Nevertheless, what is the price of peace? And where does it begin that peace becomes such a precious thing that we should sacrifice everything, including sovereignty, security, and our own determining forms of government, for this kind of an approach to peace? Peace is something that is easily lost and hard to be acquired. Generally, and throughout most of history, there never really has been a concept of peace. There's really never been a concept of a time rid of disease. The only time that we've ever seen that the world has been rid across most of its face of war, disease, and the general woes of humankind that have faced it for thousands of millennia is really just over the past 70 years since the end of World War II. This is something that a lot of people are seeming to take for granted, that the current kind of a situation that we find ourselves in, with all these great kinds of creature comforts that really were on the shoulders of hundreds of millions killed over just the past century alone, is something that is easily achieved and could be easily sold away for pennies on the dollar. That isn't something that I believe in at all. The state of Ukraine is fighting a war for its very survival. It's fighting a war much like the United States of America fought in its early inception, during the time of 1775, quite literally just a few days ago, on April 19th of 1775, 250 years ago, a couple of militiamen, hundreds of militiamen actually, faced down a British regiment outside of Lexington and Concord and engaged them in open combat, an open act of rebellion against the Crown, and an open act of rebellion by the Crown colonies and the Continental Congress in direct opposition of British authority over those colonies and the lack of representation, while also passing laws onto the colonies that were considered to be unfair. Many people at the time could have stated that all of this bloodshed that was happening in the colonies was a needless venture by a whole bunch of rich and wealthy men who came from some of the wealthiest colonies inside the United States at that time, and that the entire thing should be settled, and that those men should be hanged for their crimes against the crown. That could have been an easy statement to make at the time, because peace, with this kind of a mindset, it has to be achieved at all costs, even if it means to deprive oneself of liberty, even if it means to deprive oneself of a right to their own destiny. And that is something that largely is in the face of the United States history, because throughout our entire history, we have never skithered away from breaking a peace to do the right thing. The United States of America fought and bled to liberate itself from the British as a colony, and was able to liberate itself into the early form of the United States. Then, only a short while later, about 7 years ago from the date of, we were able to see that the bloodiest conflict that the United States ever engaged in, the Civil War, was undertaken, largely under the concept of a state's right to be able to choose whether they would continue to impose slavery upon an entire race of people or not. To this day, that war is the deadliest and bloodiest war in American history. It has not been surpassed by any conflict, whether it be World War I or World War II, for the amount of blood that was spilled on American soil to resolve a situation that was viewed to be absolutely intolerable at a time when the nation was going through rapid developments and involvements in many different ways. One could have easily argued back then that peace should be achieved at all costs. Peace is the supreme. And while many people may have to continue to live in absolute abject poverty, subjugation, and cruelty inside of the southern United States, the concept of peace is such a grand ambition that we should allow for these unjust actions to be continued, and that we should allow the United States to continue to dissolve itself into multiple fractions and pieces for the pursuit of that peace, even if it means that we are continuing to put ourselves in a worse position and we're continuing to disenfranchise citizens well on into the centuries beyond. That is the thing that has defined the United States for 250 years. As of this very day right now, when the Revolutionary War began 250 years ago, the idea of forcing the Ukrainians into an unjust peace is something that largely goes against the grain of the American spirit. The American spirit is one that has never been one to back down in the face of tyranny or the face of a brutal dictator or an otherworldly kind of an evil power that emanates from another country. We've continued to face down some of the worst countries that have ever been seen on the face of the planet. The Nazi Germans, the Imperial Germany, the Soviet Union, the Confederate States, the British. Well, the British weren't really bad, but there was a whole bunch of other issues that we had with the British, largely dealing with representation inside of an elected government, which we did not have at the time. And all of these things were always over the issue of what was right. And while we always have to say that war is a terrible thing and the kind of death that it brings is of course, a horrendous sort of reality, sometimes we do not have a choice, and war cannot be avoided, and we must go into it, and we must do the job that has to be done. And with that in mind, I'd have to say that these sorts of propositions on the state of Ukraine are woefully unfair and attempting to try and push onto the state of Ukraine a concept that the United States has not even subscribed to over its 250 years of history. And so with that, I hope that it...
Also, by the way, I see someone in the live chat. They said, isn't this wishful thinking since we have to worry about nuclear weapons? Here's my theory on this. World War III is inevitable. It will happen eventually. Like history tells us that this will happen again. It's happened twice so far, world wars, like on that scale. It will happen a third time. It's just inevitable that it will happen. It's just a matter of when. So the big question is, when's it going to happen? Of course, we don't know the answer to that question. But one thing we do know is right now we have major powers in the world like Russia and China that are aggressing on smaller nations and trying to act like a conqueror state. And Russia is being the first to the punch. They're doing that to Ukraine and see if they can get away with it. And the other ones are watching very closely to see if the West is going to let Russia actually take Ukraine and walk scot-free. So it's a question of how far can those countries get before they go crazy, go hog wild, and start doing what Nazi Germany did by invading every country and trying to dominate the entire world. And in my opinion, I would say we should stop them at a very early phase. That is the best chance we have to deter World War III. If we let capitulation take hold, then that's going to actually accelerate World War III, because then countries like China and Iran and other ones are going to feel emboldened to go, once again, attack Israel, attack Taiwan, attack the Baltics, and it's going to spiral out of control from there. And actually, you cause World War III to happen a lot earlier if you take this really appeasement approach. So the nuclear weapons argument and being scared of that, of course, it's based in rationale, but it's kind of short-sighted, because we can't be so scared to oppose our enemies that we're going to let them basically do what they want and take everybody over. If we let them do that, that's just speeding up the inevitable, in my opinion.
I would have to say that I would agree. And also, I see a whole bunch of people saying all kinds of different things in the chat. Largely, actually, for some reason, I'm seeing a good amount in opposition to the idea. But the thing is, and here's the thing I got to say, because this is the reality. I saw someone say, I'm one of those draft age people that would have to fight this war, or is anyone else in here my age, and I'm not willing to go fight this war. That's kind of the mindset that's going to lead to the collapse of what we have. Because I don't think people realize this, but it's been all of the generations prior to ours that have been willing to say that we will fight and possibly die and see America's final hour to be able to secure the liberties and beliefs that we have always held dear, and continue to see that the American way of life and American Western interests are continuously assured around the globe. That is how we've been able to be in the position we are today, to have the kind of comforts and luxuries where folks of our generation say that I have never seen pestilence and I have never seen war, and I don't want either, and I would sacrifice anything to be able to avoid something that may be uncomfortable or may be unpleasant. And I have to say, we are not at all a single bit deft of what war is. Our job consists of us watching day in and day out people getting killed. We don't show a lot of that here on the channel, but whenever I'm putting together the news, I see at least about a good 100 people every single day getting killed in gruesome ways before we actually get on air. Even tonight I saw it. And I know what war is, and I know what it's about. And it's an absolutely gruesome thing. Recently, as a matter of fact, I've been having an incredibly hard time sleeping because my brain goes 100 miles an hour all day, every day, and when I sleep nowadays, it's pretty hard to get through the night without having a nightmare, just being completely frank. But nevertheless, that kind of reality can't be avoided just because we want to say it's unpleasant and it's not a good one, so let's avoid it at all costs. There was a group of people who did the very same thing that many people in my generation want to do right now, and they were under the exact same concept and guise that many others are at this very moment in time, and that was the generation leading up to World War II. Every single person who was alive at that time had largely gone through the horrors of the First World War, a war that was so horrendous that really no other war has topped it in barbarity. I don't think any single one has. Not even the war in the Pacific between Imperial Japan and the United States and the British have even gotten close to just being as barbarous and hellish as the Western Front World War I was. And all of those people at that time said the Germans are beginning to rearm in the 30s. Nazi Germany is beginning to try and make attempts to claim ground. We know that their ambitions are large and grand, but nevertheless, we went through the unpleasant and uncomfortable times of the First World War, and we would do anything to secure peace, even if it means that we have to give up things that are dear or things that should not be given up because it's wrong. So we'll let the Germans annex Austria, and we'll let them annex the Sudetenland, and then further on the Czech Republic as a whole, and then create a puppet state out of Slovakia. We'll allow them to remilitarize. We'll allow them to clearly use the MIFO bills to continue to rebuild their military from 1936 up until 1939. And only at the time that it was too late, and the Germans had built up their military to be too strong to actually defeat easily, then they finally said, it doesn't appear that this attempt at achieving peace at all costs is going to work, and now we have to dig in and get to it. And because of that late decision, because of an attempt to try and avoid war at all costs, we ended up seeing that the deadliest war in human history came out of it. The deadliest one ever since. We've never seen one that's even gotten close. And with that in mind, you have to remember, if the British and the French had acted early, in 1936, as a matter of fact, when it became clear that the Germans were remilitarizing because they remilitarized the Rhineland, we could have seen that that war would have been easily won by the French and the British. It would have been a couple of months. The Germans and French would have taken tens of thousands dead, but the Second World War would have been completely avoided. As a result of everyone's lack of a will to do the unpleasant thing when they don't really want to, it ended up costing tens of millions of more lives. And that's what the reality of this kind of a situation is going on in Ukraine right now. We can achieve peace at any cost, sure, and we can avoid this unpleasant reality for now. But the truth is that we won't be able to avoid it forever. And what we're doing is we're continuing to let the snowball go down the mountain and grow into a larger and more ravenous snowball until it becomes one that we cannot stop, and we can only stop it by destroying a decent part of ourselves in the process. That's going to be the reality of the situation, and that is why we need to see that the United States has a strong foot now and puts our foot down when we need to, instead of putting our foot down when it gets too late. That would be the reality of the situation, in my opinion. If you agree with me, put an LSA in the chat. If you don't, let me know. I'm interested to know. But nevertheless, a lot of people are talking about the U.S. officials pressuring Zelenskyy to recognize Crimea as Russia threatens to back out of the talks. And a lot of people have been putting in their thoughts. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So it looks like 40% of the audience said U.S. will end Ukraine support over this, while 30% said the U.S. will simply back out of the talks instead of ending support, and 21% said the U.S. will never really truly back out. Now, this is a bit of a vague statement in itself as well. The U.S. is very professional at putting out vague statements these days. They're telling Zelenskyy that he really should recognize Crimea as being Russian, and they're trying to word it in a really tricky way where it sounds like they're not giving up Crimea, but at the same time, they're recognizing it as Russia's territory. So it's kind of word games, but really they're basically telling Ukraine to give it up. They're also telling Ukraine to basically give up the occupied regions that are occupied by Russia and freeze the conflict along the front lines. They're basically telling Zelenskyy to give up everything and basically give in completely to Russia and also shut up at the same time and don't dare speak a word about it. So when the U.S. says if Zelenskyy doesn't adhere to that, then the U.S. is going to back out of the situation. Some people interpret that to mean that the U.S. is going to end support, and some people interpret that to mean that the U.S. is not going to negotiate between those two countries anymore, between Russia and Ukraine. Honestly, I would say that it's a lot of hot air. We're never going to totally end Ukraine support as the United States. And pretty much every other action that's been taken in foreign policy under this new administration has not turned out been the way they've said it's going to be, basically. It turns out to be backpedaled, and we basically stay to the status quo. And I think this is going to be the same thing as well. We are not going to end Ukraine support. It's going to keep flowing. There may be some temporary holdups with it, but it's not going to be completely stopped because we've seen that in the past where they stopped it momentarily and then they restarted it. And I think that's probably going to happen again because, of course, letting Ukraine fall is going to really piss off Europe, and it's also going to further basically lengthen the rift between Europe and the United States. So I really doubt we're going to end support. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, in my opinion, I think the U.S. is simply going to back out of talks and most likely continue to support the Ukrainians like you're saying. Because the situation is that we have to back a dog in this fight. That's really the reality of it. I know a lot of people I've seen some, well, not a lot of people. I see some people in the chat say, oh, it's Europe's war. Literally the statements that were made by certain U.S. citizens leading up to World War II. Oh, it's Europe's war. Let them deal with it. And then it became our problem a couple of years later. But beyond that, this is something that I would have to say. I think we're going to continue to support the Ukrainians. It probably isn't going to be in a, even in a significant way. I would say it's probably going to be greatly reduced in the amount of financial support, but I have a feeling that the support will continue. If not, the Europeans are ramping up and militarizing to such a rapid extent that they might be able to fill the gap that the United States is leaving behind, at least a decent amount. Not entirely, but a decent amount. But beyond that, I think that U.S. support for Ukraine will continue, but it will be in earnest for the large part, at least in my opinion. But nevertheless,
and also, by the way, I think that the public sentiment is starting to catch up in the United States. That while some people, or while the very, very vocal voices that are anti-Ukraine are very loud, I think a lot of people in the country, if they knew the entire situation, the ones that are sort of like silent on the issue, I believe that they would say that we should keep supporting Ukraine. But of course, the naysayers about Ukraine are extremely loud, and they're very, honestly, they're kind of ignorant. No offense if you don't like Ukraine, but honestly, it's kind of ignorant not to support Ukraine because who supports a dictatorship, which is Russia, invading another country? If you support that, I would say by nature, that's pretty ignorant. Because, of course, we're living in a democracy and we're enjoying democracy. So why would you support a dictatorship that wants to rip it apart and basically kill all the people in the democracy? That would make no sense. So I would say, generally speaking, I think public sentiment is pro-Ukrainian. And I think overall, I think the politicians are going to sort of adhere to that public sentiment. Because if it starts getting really bad, let's say Russia takes over Ukraine as a whole and the war starts going sideways because the U.S. totally cuts support. In my opinion, I would see that as a failure. I think most people would also see that as a failure. And that will threaten the politicians currently in power because a lot of people are going to say, hey, wait a minute, why those people just let a foreign country, which was a de facto ally of the West, get destroyed by a dictatorship? And then people start asking questions. And then some people that weren't even aware of the situation start becoming more aware of it. And they're like, hey, we can't reelect that person because they're not even defending democracy. So, I would say that would probably be the case.
I would have to say I think that's the case as well. And once again, I got to say this because I keep seeing a lot of people saying all kinds of things about how the United States should not support America. Well, actually, it should not support Ukraine. Pull the Bushism there. But the reason why I got to say something, that's a little bit important here, is that there's an old saying, and it's true on every level, that there's no such thing as a free lunch. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows that there's no such thing as a free lunch. You might get that lunch, you might not have to pay for it now, but you'll pay for it later. And you might have to pay for it with interest. And that's how it works with these kinds of situations right here. We can either come forward and we can deal with the situation now, and we can stop it where it lies and not let this progress any further, or we can continue to sit back, enjoy our free lunch, and then pay for it with interest later. That's going to be the reality of what we're going to see. There is never a time in history where anyone has sold the price of peace for discount values and ever succeeded in seeing that work. There's never been a time. There never will be a time. And this is going to end up biting us back dearly if we continue to move on with this kind of an idea. This is never going to work. So I see some people saying learn from history. That's probably the best example I could give. And someone's about to tell me, go read some book written, like, I'm just going to put it honestly. Go read some book written by a communist that talks about some guy that gets shot and killed in a gory way in war. I hate to tell y'all, but that's what happens. People have been dying in war forever. And for a good amount of the time, there's usually a side that's fighting for nothing, and there's a side fighting for something. And our side is fighting for something right now. That I can guarantee you. We were fighting for something in World War II. We were fighting for something in World War I. We were fighting for something in the Revolutionary War and the war between the states. We were fighting for something in every single one of those conflicts. They all made sense. Crazily enough, we were fighting for something in Korea. We were fighting for something in Vietnam. We were fighting those wars for the exact same reason we have to fight the ones that we are seeing coming around the corner right now. And what's even better about this one is that so far, we haven't been able to get directly involved because we pretty much stopped the Russians in Ukraine. We haven't had to worry about them being in Eastern Europe or Poland or anywhere else because they've hardly even been able to deal with Ukraine because we've continued to support them so much. They've been stopped there. And I just want to put this out there that the amount of money that we've given to the Ukrainians in military support has been exceedingly low. $20 billion a year is nothing. The current budget in the federal government to fix potholes on the interstates is $65 billion annually, meaning that it costs 3 times the amount annually to fix potholes in the United States than it does to support the Ukrainians for a single 3-year period. That is crazy when you think about it. And it's absolutely crazy to hear people saying that Ukraine is breaking the bank. I'll be honest with y'all. I think that fixing potholes in the interstate sounds like it's breaking the bank far more than funding the Ukrainians to literally defeat the entire Russian army at a discount. And we don't even have to get involved in the war. So really the choice is this. People don't like it this way, but this is the reality of it. Either we can give them money to continue to stop the Russians where they are in Ukraine, so we can continue to support the Ukrainians, or we can stop supporting the Ukrainians can lose the war, and then not only are we spending our money, but our people are dying in the war against the Russians, because now we're going to be involved in a war in the Baltics or Poland. Or we're going to have to get involved eventually, because someone's going to end up attacking us, like the Chinese. The Chinese and the Russians are going to create a united front, and then look, lo and behold, it's World War II all over again, quite literally. So that is the situation. So you can take it for what it is. You can live in denial, but that's the reality of it. And in 70 years' time, just like people look at Franklin, well, not really Franklin Delano Roosevelt, but other people from their time, like, for example, Teddy Roosevelt in World War I, people are going, wow, if people just listened to him and actually got involved in the war early, many lives would have been saved. Many people still would have died, but there would have been far less. And the situation would have resolved itself quite easily. That's how it works. Like, I hate that some people don't want to believe that, but that's the reality of the situation. That's always been the reality of it. If you don't believe me, I'm sorry. Like, I'm a 4-year, I have a bachelor's degree. I went to college for 4 years learning history. That's really the reoccurring trend. Like, in every single war, I can promise you that. So with that.
But why do people, let me ask you this, because I didn't study history, I studied political science, and it really didn't answer this question, because nobody really can make sense of politicians' actions, to be honest with you. But what does history say? Why do people repeat the same responses to the same things that happen over and over, like World War I, World War II? Why do people make the same mistake over and over and think that it's going to have a different result every single time? Why is that? Do you even know?
Well, here's the reason why. Nobody likes war. That's the reality of it. And no politician wants to be the one who has the blood on their hands. Very few of them ever want to start a war. And when you look at the history of the United States, very rarely did it directly go out of its way to start a war. Usually, in most situations, there's some sort of a defense justification that's given for a war. For example, World War I and World War II, there's always a defensive justification. There's never sort of a preemptive attack, and there's very few wars in American history that would fall under that kind of a concept. Really, the only ones I can think of would be the, well, not even the Gulf War really counts, not even the invasion of Iraq or Afghanistan, because there was always a defense justification involved. And some people are going to be like, well, what was it? In the Gulf War, it was the invasion of Kuwait and the violation of international law and the sovereignty of the Kingdom of Kuwait. So we went over there to enforce the sovereignty of Kuwait and to force the Iraqis out. Then when we invaded in 2003, we stated they were creating weapons of mass destruction, which once again fell within a defensive parameter. In the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001, that was largely in response to Afghanistan harboring members of Al-Qaeda who were responsible for the attacks on the Twin Towers during 9/11. Really, most wars we've ever fought were largely for defensive reasons. The only one I can say largely falls out of that framework would be the War of 1812, because we actually went and declared war on the British preemptively for really no reason rather than wanting to annex Canada. That was kind of the real situation there. And I see some people saying the Spanish-American War. Technically, no. Like technically, yes, but technically, no. Because, yes, it's most likely the case that it was a boiler explosion on board the USS Maine that led to its sinking in Havana Harbor due to a severe explosion. But at the time, due to the fact that they really weren't able to research or study the effects of the explosion incredibly well, they blamed the Maine on Spain, which is the famous thing that everyone always says, but we actually did. And we said that the Spanish had planted a mine on the side of the Maine and blew it up. And so technically at the time, we actually did have a defensive justification that the Spanish had attacked us, and now we were going to respond. So in the modern day, it really doesn't stand up, but at the time, it actually was largely understood, or at least believed, that the Spanish actually had planted a mine on the USS Maine, and that's why it blew up. Although we know that that's not the case nowadays. But back in the day, kind of like the invasion of Iraq, largely still for defensive purposes, doesn't really fall within that parameter. Someone said the War of the Philippine Insurrection of 1899. Once again, largely defensive, because the U.S. had taken the Philippines as a territory, a U.S. territory at that point, that was being administered for a while, under, I think, a 50-year lease or something like that. But nevertheless, the Filipinos rose up in an insurrection against the U.S. occupational forces, and so we had a defensive act there. Also, that was more so of a domestic thing, considering it was a U.S. territory at that point. So that's largely why we responded in that kind of a form. But still, doesn't really fall within the offensive parameter. Like the War of 1812, as far as I know, is really the only one that does, at least in my memory.
What about, like, for example, the communist containment policy? Did we ever actually like go and offensively do anything to anybody to actually contain the communists? I can't recall.
Not really, because there always was a defensive element. A lot like I'm saying nowadays, but I push the defensive element a lot farther. There are American interests at play. So, for example, in South Korea, or in the Korean War, in 1950, when the North Koreans invaded, the North Koreans were violating the sovereignty of South Korea and violating international law. And under that declaration by UN Charter, we actually started a UN mission, which is interesting. It was the only time that the UN went to war, to go into South Korea and fight North Korea. So still a defensive justification. And then in the Vietnam War, crazily enough, a lot of people think of Vietnam as an offensive thing. It actually was more so defensive, at least at the time. But we'll get into that a little bit more. I'll speak on the nuances of that. So at the time in Vietnam, there were two nations. Everyone knows the story: North Vietnam and South Vietnam. The southern guys are almost always aligned with us. There's some form of a dictatorship. And then the northern side is a dictatorship, but they're communists. So we hate those people. But beyond that, the Vietnamese of the north, under Ho Chi Minh, who was their leader, much like Mao Zedong for China, decided that they were going to forcefully reunify the South Vietnamese one way or another, and were conducting insurgent attacks against South Vietnam ever since the French left Indochina after their blistering defeat at Dien Bien Phu in 1954. The United States got involved literally the year after the French left in 1955 under Dwight D. Eisenhower, and this was largely kept as an advisory mission under Dwight D. Eisenhower and John F. Kennedy until John F. Kennedy was killed and Lyndon B. Johnson was brought in. Lyndon B. Johnson was more so pursuing at the time a direct supporting role to the South Vietnamese and decided to send, I believe it was the 7th Airborne Cavalry, to an area that is now known as Ai Drang. It was outside of Pleiku, and let me see if I can go find it. Let's see, where is Pleiku? Pretty big city. There we go. So the Battle of Ai Drang. Well, as far as somewhere in this general area. Unfortunately, I can't see the specific area right now. But nevertheless, we landed out there with a search and destroy mission. The Vietnamese attacked in droves, and then that gave the justification from that point, a defensive justification, that not only was North Vietnam hostile to the South Vietnamese, but they were also hostile to the United States of America directly, and so we moved the U.S. mission in Vietnam from an advisory mission to a direct arms supporting role to the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. So still largely defensive in nature.
Interesting. So I see some people in the chat saying that Vietnam they believe was offensive. Honestly, I would personally say that it seems like Vietnam would be a little bit more on the offensive side of things, just from my perspective. But I could see the argument that it was defensive. But of course, I think the long-standing criticism of the Vietnam War is it's a war that we should have never really been involved in the first place because it really was not truly defensive. But there's a lot of arguments on that one. Of course, it's a very controversial topic. But I would kind of see both sides.
Actually, I see a lot of people bringing up something I forgot. The banana wars, pretty much throughout like the from 1900 to about the 1950s. Yeah, y'all are right. Actually, I just remembered those. Those were pretty much all offensive wars fought for the United Fruit Company. We love bananas in America, and damn it, we were going to get them. So yeah, y'all are right. Those were all a series of offensive wars. So the War of 1812 and the Banana Wars, or the Banana Republics, are largely, I think, the only examples I can come up with right now where the U.S. got involved in offensive campaigns. But nevertheless, I hope that addresses that the best we can. Good point that y'all were bringing up there. That actually is a good example. But with that, it is time for us to move on into a little segment so that way we can take a small breather here from the news, because we have loads of questions that have come in tonight, and we have to get to them before we get to the rest of the news that we have for the remainder of the night, which we still have a great deal of. But nevertheless, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so our first super chat of the night goes to none other than David Dornblaser, a longtime channel legend and also a big supporter of the channel. And thank you very much, David, for that $100 support, one of the largest ones of the night, and we do appreciate that very much. And David did not leave a comment, sadly, but I was just double checking here to see if he left a super sticker of sorts. So let me go back up and take a peek real quick. And I do not see it. It's just a big red block, and it has the really cool profile picture of Zelenskyy with the Ukraine flag behind him. But thank you very much, David, for that massive support once again and helping to get the channel running. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to say a massive thanks and support to David Dornblaser for helping this channel to keep on running and supporting it and making it possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel reality. I got to thank everyone so much for being patient with us while we were gone. It's been shocking to see that tonight we reached a peak of 10.2 thousand people here live with us. We actually didn't expect that coming back. I was expecting somewhat lower numbers. But every time we leave, a lot of people go into Enforcer withdrawals. And then when we get right back to streaming, we have like a massive homecoming, which we love to see. And we love to know that y'all care about the channel so much. And I got to thank you so much for the incredibly massive support, David Dornblaser, as well. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, with that kind of massive support, we wouldn't be able to keep the lights on, and we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. Tried to mute on that one, failed. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second super chat of the night goes to none other than Old Warrior, who's also another longtime channel legend and also another big supporter of the channel. And huge shout out to Old Warrior for that massive $100 support. And he says, make a note, the next China leader, Zhang Yozhai, I think, there has been mixed messages about that armored train you showed getting hit. Some say it was abandoned one in Ukrainian territory near Udachny, and others say it was in an attack. And any clarification?
I got to thank you for the massive support, Old Warrior. Unfortunately, I'd have to declare ignorance on that armored train attack. I personally haven't seen any trains. I don't remember showing any either, especially near Udachne, at least at this point. So unfortunately, we will have to declare ignorance on that one for now. I hate to say that, but I don't know much about that. If you're talking about an armored attack column near Udachne, I'll have to look into that a little bit more because it's been about 5 days if we're trying to get brushed up on this at this point. Let's see, it was abandoned one in Ukraine. But with the context behind that, I still don't really know if it's about a physical train or if it's a, say, a like armored attack column. So unfortunately, I have to declare ignorance on that part. 1 second. But on the other part, Zhang Yuzha, that is your pick. Let me go pull him up. He is the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. This guy looks like a piece of work.
Man, jeez, man, jeez.
Dude, I heard that I heard many things about this guy. I'm not going to say any of them. Like, I'm not going to say
Do
a
they have
single thing about
PT
him.
requirements there? Like, do they have any PT requirements?
Dude, they have PT requirements. They call it that picking, like, meat, like, or something like that. I don't know,
Man,
but
he's getting a lot of exercise with the fork and knife on that Pekin duck.
dude, I've actually heard that the French have been looking for them. They've been saying, "Have you seen a frog? We're trying to cook him." But nevertheless,
Oh dear.
man, he looks like a frog. Honestly, man, like Xi Jinping actually looks like a model compared to this guy, and that's not saying much. But nevertheless, an interesting pick. He's pretty high up there right now in the communist political apparatus, being the vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. It's possible that he could be the guy. It's just that the thing is that it's so unpredictable to know who really will be the leader of China, because Xi Jinping came out of nowhere, like literally just came racing out of nowhere to the top. And while this guy is on up there, and he really would appear to be one of the guys that would probably win in these power struggles, usually these kinds of dictatorships, it's usually some sort of a quiet, unseen, unheard of guy that's been scheming in the background for years that usually races all the way up to the top through political and diplomatic intrigue to become the next leader of China. Kind of like Nikita Khrushchev. Because Khrushchev, let's see, let's go pull him up. Nikita Khrushchev. And when y'all see him, y'all will know he's not really, he wasn't really up there in the runnings, was he? This guy. Look at him and tell me, do you think that he would be the next leader after Stalin? No. The guy looks goofy. Like, he just looks goofy, and also, everyone said he was a clown. And he also held a very small position inside of I think it was the, I don't even think it was the Presidium. It was something lower than that. But beyond
You know why? Do you know why these unknown people usually get to these positions? Like, do you know the real reason why?
why, Matthew? Why?
The general going theory is, like, for example, Putin, Xi Jinping, this fellow here, Khrushchev, they're all holding these positions which are generally considered not very high ranking. They're not considered the quote unquote elite of the political class in these places where they're at. But they have a very, very wide base of lower level support in bureaucracies and things like that. So they happen to amass actually a much wider base of support amongst lower levels of leadership. And while they may not have the elites behind them in large numbers, they have this massive bureaucracy behind them, and that has a lot of power behind it. So it's deceiving sometimes. Some people are like, well, these people are just low-level leadership. They can't jump to the ranks. But if they're ruthless enough, like Putin was, like Xi Jinping is, they can easily, quickly jump up to the highest level and be a real contender for a position like that. And that's what Putin did. That's how he got to where he was. He was basically unheard of. When he got in his position, he was basically considered a nobody, but he had really, really good support in the bureaucracy because he had held those positions for such a long time, and he had the backing of the intelligence people. So he happened to get where he was at. Sort of the same story for all of them, pretty much across the board.
Yeah, that's actually dead on the nail from what I know, and I'm not even a political science major. You're that guy, so you would know that a lot better than me. But people like these, they're usually able to get on up there because they've been scheming in the background for a while, and they're not a general perceived threat by everyone. There's just this guy in the background, and he was that guy. Like, Khrushchev was the most fly on the wall kind of a guy that was inside of the inner workings of Moscow for the large part, and he was able to get on up there. And then the guy who would eventually replace him, who was Laurent Beriev, he was another guy. Wait, hang on. Laurent Beriev was the head of the NKVD at that time. Leonid Brezhnev was the guy who would eventually outdo Nikita Khrushchev. And Nikita Khrushchev, while Nikita Khrushchev was in charge, was the Nikita Khrushchev of his time. He was just a fly in the wall. Nobody even knew who he was. And then he was able to, through political intrigue, while Khrushchev was actually on vacation at his dacha, was able to get the entire Central Committee to just throw Khrushchev out while he was gone. So they just called him up on the phone while he was on vacation and said, "You're no longer the leader of Russia, Brezhnev is," and then they hung up the phone on him. So, kind of a sad ending for this guy. But this guy right here, Zhang Yaozha, if that's the correct way to pronounce that, He's pretty much, I guess, if you want to put it this way, although he isn't as, battle honored, he might be the Georgy Zhukov of this version of China. So he won't really be the guy who takes charge, but he'll be one of the vehicles that one of these flies on the wall will use to be able to take charge. But he could also be a contender as well. I mean, he's on up there. So he would be one of the go-to main contenders to become the next leader of China. But we never really will know. An interesting pick, though, Old Warrior, and I definitely see why you picked him. But I always think, and I'm going to stick with this until I'm proven wrong in the modern day, that it's always going to be a no-named nobody who is able to climb up to the top, because that's almost always how it's worked so far, most of these kinds of communist dictatorships, and I think that this will most likely follow the same example. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, Matthew, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're getting on into the remainder of the news.
All right. Also, Kim Buckles said in the live chat, they all look like psychos. That's actually most likely a requirement, in my opinion, to be in those positions like that, because the things you have to do to basically step on people to get to those positions, you have to be psychotic or a little bit narcissistic or something like that to be able to just blindly basically destroy people to get your way to the top. And that's what you have to do in those types of environments to get there, like what Putin did, also what Xi did. In those environments, you have to be willing to step on whoever you need to step on to get there. And that tells you how dangerous those people are. If they can suddenly just pop up out of nowhere and jump to the top, they did something so horrendous to so many people that it would be sickening to the average person if they probably knew all the details of everything they had to do to get there. So they are psychos, like all of them are actually, which is kind of crazy. They all have that in common. But anyways, jumping onto our next super chat, our last one of the segment. This one goes to none other than Kiwi, who puts in a $100 donation as well. And a huge shout out to Kiwi for those 2 New Zealand donations. We appreciate that very much. And a big shout out to Kiwi and Enforcer. What say you?
And a huge shout out to Kiwi. Did not throw in a comment, but we are still massively appreciative of your incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you all the way down there from the double islands of New Zealand, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And oh buddy folks, I gotta tell y'all, the more I push air in and out of my throat, the more sore it gets, the harder it gets to talk. But I still thank you so much once again, Kiwi, for the support, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to get on air and exhale and inhale air for hours on end, keeping this news running. I'm thanking folks like you for helping us to keep the lights on and being able to make this channel a reality, even when we're not in the best of weather. Also, by the way, folks, I am hoping that this time it's not a cold. I think this time it was more so allergies, because Matthew can attest to this. This did not happen until we made it to West Palm Beach. And then I got sick. Really got allergies. Because I don't have a fever. I don't feel sick. But I am snotting a lot. I'm coughing a lot. And also, I'm sneezing a lot. So I think that this
I told you not to go to the swamp. I told you not to go there. He went to the swamp. I said, keep out of the swamp. He went to the swamp anyway. I said, you're becoming a swamp creature. I said, and then of course there's something about draining the swamp. I said, it's not possible. There's no drain plug to it. But anyways.
Actually, I correct you, Matthew. I actually said I was fitting to take Shouty to the swamp. But
oh my god, man. Honestly, that's awful.
Call me blip kosher. But anyways, I do thank you so much for the support, Kiwi, and helping the channel to keep on running. But I do think it was the West Palm Beach air, because something down there in the swamp I'm allergic to, apparently. Never been down there before. I'll actually tell y'all this a little bit. We'll get into this in the question segment more. But we went to West Palm, but generally we went to the Miami metropolitan area. We went all the way down to Miami and back up to West Palm Beach. And then we also went to the greater Seattle area as well. That was what our trip revolved around for the most part. And so I was perfectly fine in Seattle and perfectly fine everywhere outside of Seattle. But as soon as I got to West Palm Beach, I started to get like the snotty nose, the sneezing, and the coughing. And I was like, this has got to be allergies of some kind. I'm allergic to South Florida. Honestly, I'm allergic to Florida. The flatness, it just grinds me down. Like, I cannot stand the flatness of Florida. It's such a flat state. But beyond that, I hope that addresses that somewhat well. But when we went down there, oh buddy, we got some stories to tell you. It was nice in some places, and terrible in others. The wealth disparity down there in the Miami metropolitan area is insane. Like, you wouldn't believe it if I told you. It would go from being so nice it was unbelievable to so bad it was worse than anything we've ever seen. It actually beats out Birmingham, Alabama, and Montgomery, Alabama, which is where we're from, in like how bad it could get, which was just shocking. Like, Matthew can back that up. Actually, that was a really interesting thing.
I can back that up. Also got videos to back it up as well. Also, by the way, I did fulfill the promise I made to everybody. I said, since we're taking the 4 or 5, excuse me, I almost coughed right there myself. But since we're taking the 4 days off, I took videos of literally everything we did. So it's going to be like a 5-minute long video, I think, or somewhere around that mark, of basically a recap of our entire trip, showing where we went. It was honestly an insane trip. We got to see everything from like a ski resort where it was snowing all the way down to Florida where it was hot, and we were at the beach. So we got to take a look at pretty much everything between those 2 places. So we took videos of it. So the enforcer took his own like comedic take of the videos as well. So I'm going to edit together a little short like recap of it, and we're going to show it to you all here on the stream. And I'll probably upload it to my video too, to show y'all all what we did as a big thank you for letting us take the time off. Because I tell you what, the audience is it's a very tough boss. The audience is, they want more streams. And we're here to deliver.
No way, dude. I actually just pulled this up. Yeah, I actually got allergies in Florida. Like, that is so common, dude. They've written articles on it on Google. Like, it's like, why? Like, I typed in, why did I get allergies in Florida? They were like, if you don't live in Florida and you go down to Florida, crazy enough, you're probably going to get allergies because it's a constant pollen season year round in Florida to an insane degree. So you're just going to get, like, most people.
Fog.
What?
Also, that fog, off the coast, that fog that was rolling in.
Bro, they fogging us like honeybees out here, man. Like, it's honestly, but they don't do it at Mar-a-Lago. But honestly, that was like, also, by the way, we went by Mar-a-Lago, and I'm like, I'm gonna be honest, folks. I'm not saying this with a political vein, but it was greatly underwhelming. Like, one of the most underwhelming buildings I've ever seen. It was very small. It was packed up on the street. And they had like Secret Service everywhere. I was like, this is what we saw. Actually, I'll show y'all really quickly. What, dude? They built up the hedgerow to hide the building.
They added in a hedgerow and a fence. That's kind of crazy. Honestly, I was just shocked. We'll talk about this more later, by the way. But I was shocked because we literally drove by this place because we were like, oh, let's see what it is. It's literally like a mile away or something. Drove by and I was like, hey, you can literally like drive by the street like to this place. It's honestly insane how close it is to the street. It seemed like a security risk to me. I mean, I was just like, I can see why they built the hedgerow and the fence, because I'm like, this is like super close to the street. Like a nut could go by there and do something stupid.
So apparently, Matthew, I think they built like a taller wall. The wall just got 10 feet taller, and then they put a hedgerow in front of it to block most of the building. Because when we passed by, all we could see was this tower right here, and that was it. Like, we couldn't see any other part of the building at all.
Yeah, honestly, like that was smart to build the wall and the other thing. I'm not going to lie. Like, that was smart because it's super close to the street. Like, it's really wild to see how close it is to the street.
Also, one more thing, I just got to say, I'm not a fan of the architectural style of this building. Like, I know what style it's supposed to be, but that tower right there gives off a Dr. Seuss vibe. And I'm personally not a big fan of Dr. Seuss illustrations. I know a lot of people are going to be shocked by that. I don't like them. So when I saw that in real life, I was like, ugh, Dr. Seuss. I was like, I don't like that. Like I would like it if it had more of a Gothic revival look to it. That would have looked good. But this, it's like a Spanish revival kind of a thing. I'm not really a big fan of that, especially that tower. Like if it was just a building right here without the tower, I actually think it would look pretty good. But that little tower thing, it takes away from the whole structure. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Also, we will tell y'all more about our adventures in Seattle and Miami, because they were both incredibly interesting from start to finish, really. But anyways, I hope that does address that well. Huge thanks to you once again for support, Kiwi, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one, the next bits of news, actually. And moving us on through the news a little bit quicker and with a little less talking because it's starting to hurt pretty badly, we're going to be moving on into India. As we have been able to hear, that the Indians appear to be preparing for war with Pakistan, as we've been able to hear that tensions are now rising between the two in the immediate aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack, which, to explain really quickly, this happened just today. In the area of Pahalgam, inside of the Jammu and Kashmir region, a gunman opened fire into a crowd of tourists, killing about 40 to 50 of them so far, in what is believed to be by the Republic of India's government an orchestrated attack by the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan. Well, actually Pakistan, correction there. The Indians are responding pretty ferociously to it quickly. The government of India has initiated a series of calibrated retaliatory measures as a part of its initial response framework. The Indus Waters Treaty, signed in 1960 under the auspices of the World Bank, has been officially suspended, halting all cooperative water sharing arrangements with Pakistan. Mind you, most of the water sources in Pakistan actually have their sources in India at the moment. So this means that there will be bloodshed coming from that, because the rivers passing through Pakistan and India are a lifeline and the life's blood of these two nations. They're pretty much their version of the Tigris and the Euphrates. So with that in mind, considering that the Indians may start to dam up these rivers, we could see that war is coming quite inevitably at this point, because water is truly the life's blood of a country. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear that the Wagah-Atari border crossing, the key point of transit and bilateral engagement, has been ordered shut with immediate effect. India has suspended all visa services for Pakistani nationals until further notice. Indian diplomatic personnel have been recalled from missions in Pakistan, and Pakistani military advisors currently stationed in India have been declared persona non grata and instructed to depart the country forthwith. We've also been able to hear that not only were the military advisors instructed to leave the country, but Pakistani nationals now have 48 hours to leave India, as the water treaty was rescinded. And the Indians declared the Pakistani military attaché in New Delhi as persona non grata. We are now understanding that the Indians and Pakistanis are now going on a warpath, largely because of the action spurned forward by this attack of terror today in the Jammu and Kashmir region, and it does appear that at this point, the Indians and the Pakistanis may be going at it. Doesn't really seem like a big thing until you realize that both of them are nuclear armed. Then it becomes a pretty big thing. But we currently see that situation still developing right now, and we'll keep y'all apprised of that situation in case of it turns into a major shooting conflict. Nevertheless, moving on from that and into Ukraine, we've been able to get a significant amount of news over the course of the day, as we have been able to hear that the city of Kyiv has unfortunately been under significant attack with a large amount of Russian missiles impacting the city, which we can see right here. Moving on to our next clip, we can also see another explosion. There's been dozens of casualties reported in the city of Kyiv. At this point, we have not heard of any fatalities, but still there's been a great deal of wounded.
Ого, достаточно близко.
Moving on from that and into the next clip, we also got to see another explosion site of Kyiv right here. And then moving on from these clips, we actually have another completely independent segment of the damage that was caused at the site of Kyiv from these missile attacks. Damage has been reported in practically every single quadrant of the city, and it appears that first responders are overwhelmed at this moment responding to the damage caused by these Russian attacks. Once again, at this moment, before we ran the stream, we have not heard of any fatalities, but the chance of fatalities in the event of these attacks is wildly high, and we will be trying to keep y'all apprised of any casualty reports that come out subsequent to the stream, either tomorrow or in the short war summary that Matthew will most likely be making tomorrow. Moving on from that and up into the area of Suja, we have been able to see that the Ukrainians have continued to hit the Russians inside of Kursk, but the Russians have also pushed into Sumy a little bit, and the Ukrainians are now having to fight them there. And also a massive shout out to Ken Medellin, who just threw in a whopping $200 super chat. A huge thanks to you. No comment there. We will make sure to address that later in full, but I wanted to give you a massive thanks now, because that support is tremendous and helps us to make this channel possible. We can see them here flying the FPV drone around a group of chickens. Apparently scaring the chickens. They like to play with the chickens. Well, moving on.
Honestly, those just look like Russians to me.
But we can now see them attacking the Russians. Man, honestly, Matthew, I'm not going to lie, dude. The schedule we had today of getting shit on by American Airlines for like 7 hours and then going straight to work is pretty grueling. I'm not going to lie, dude.
Honestly, man, I tell you what, getting shit on by American Airlines, and we'll tell you later, folks, all what happened with that. We literally got like shit on by American Airlines on the way they were talking to us and treating us and stuff like that. Never seen nothing like that, folks. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with these people? It was like we was getting into like an argument basically in the middle of the airport, like it was like the middle of the street or something. I'm like, am I not a paying customer anymore? I thought I was a customer, but they say if we want to get into an argument, I can argue with the best of them. So it's like, shit. But yeah, getting shit on by American and then coming on the stream. Honestly, we've been up since early morning.
How we've been up since like
it's
7.
crazy. Yeah, multiple flights. Like it's really crazy.
Yeah, I mean it was a crazy thing. It was a crazy thing. Ho ho. I see a lot of people talking about American Airlines. Oh, buddy, folks, I hope that we start a legit uproar against American Airlines, because I'll be honest with y'all, I have dealt with bad customer service a lot of times. That's a part of living in the 21st century. But I have never dealt with anything this bad from literally the top down. Like, I honestly would say that the entirety of the LSA should boycott American Airlines at this point, but we'll get you all the details here in a little bit. In the meantime, we want to make sure to keep focused on the 47 Magura continuing to strike the Russians up near the area of the Kursk-Sumy border. And we can see them continuing to attack the Russian infantry as they're trying to run around and duck and weave around destroyed APCs, battles long since passed. But that doesn't end up successful for them. They always end up kind of losing this little battle, like that guy did. We can also see the drone going for another Russian, this one on a dirt bike.
Also, by the way, somebody said, I can't believe American Airlines actually responded to you guys on Twitter. I actually griped about it on Twitter because I was so irritated and mad in the moment. I literally wrote a tweet about it. That's how furious I was about that. And within, I think 30 minutes or something, apparently our Twitter account, being as large as it is, caught their attention. So they responded to it. I really doubt that's going to go anywhere, but we'll find out.
In short, I think if you told me correctly, Matthew, they have a bot that goes around that just detects shit being thrown their way, and then say, oh, what's wrong? And that's pretty much it. So it's just to practically be there, but not really be there. So now we're going to go with plan B, which is to just make sure that as many people as possible don't fly American. So that's plan B. Honestly, I think the reality of it, folks, is that y'all should pick any other American carrier. So try Delta, Southwest, United, literally any other one. Any other one. It doesn't matter who.
It was really crazy. I doubt that if the lady who was being so rude and nasty to us at the gate for absolutely no damn reason whatsoever, if she knew that we were going to get on here tonight and say what we were going to say, I doubt she would have acted like that. But she had no idea. That's why you should treat everybody nice, folks, because you don't know who you're really talking to. No, and also, it doesn't matter if you're talking to somebody who has a following or not. It's like you should be just, be friendly and polite to everybody. I don't understand why some people want to be rude like that.
Yeah, honestly, man, I don't think she would have given a damn, honestly. That was the attitude of American. But still, honestly, man, I think we should have just started making an issue of it right then and there, because we don't go around broadcasting a lot. I think I did once on the trip, because someone said, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a YouTuber. But I don't go around broadcasting a lot, we're a vegan or something, that we're YouTubers. So, I'm not sitting there with this person going, do you know who I am? I'm not doing that. I'm just like, what's your problem? But anyways, we'll get into that a little bit later. And nevertheless, the Ukrainians were able to liberate Lochnia, just south of Vatanovka, which does appear to be forward progress for the Ukrainians in that general area. Moving on from that and into our location unknowns, we also were able to see a record shot taken by a Ukrainian sniper who was able to hit a Russian at 2,013 meters.
This guy was playing tic-tac-toe, but he spelled a word.
Man, look at that. Bro, that's what Hot Dog Man does when he quit his channel.
Oh man.
Oh man, I'm choking and gagging on these failures. Man, rest in peace to Hot Dog Man. He's gone and forgotten completely, except for by us. He left such an lasting impression on us that we can't forget him. But yeah, I hope he has a fun time working at the Shell at the gas station. Nevertheless, that's the end of the clip right there. And moving on from that and into our next one, we also get to see the Russian casualty report right here. And holy smokes, they got one. They got one.
They got one Bobcat skid steer. I must admit, very, very good. Very good. Very good return. One. But unfortunately, tell us more.
And the losses are good. Mistisa, keeper of the record, stated that losses rebounded after a lull over the past few days. 85 artillery pieces is the 7th highest daily loss, along with... Man, damn. But Nevertheless, 138 drones ranks as the 29th highest. I actually bit my tongue right there. At 163 supply trucks, this is the 14th highest. This stream is falling apart, folks, but nevertheless, the casualty report is insane. 1,210 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 11 APCs, 163 supply trucks, 8 main battle tanks, 85 artillery pieces, 138 drones, 1 MLRS, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and 1 Bobcat skid steer. It was actually a pretty decent day on the front lines, and it does appear that the Ukrainians are continuing to hold the Russian Federation back. Meanwhile, in the Kupiansk area, we got to see a Russian FPV drone, unfortunately hitting a Ukrainian BTR and apparently destroying it. Unfortunately, we can see the Russian drone chasing down the BTR-4 and then slamming into the back of it. We rarely show casualties here on this channel on the Ukrainian side, but we did want to show this because we do want to get across the idea that the Ukrainians are fighting a actual war, and they're not always succeeding every single time. But we can see the BTR-4 was hit quite significantly and was smoking out of the turret and the crew compartment near to the driver and commander's position, showing that the hit was quite significant and possibly resulted in casualties. We can also see a second Russian drone hitting the BTR-4 and knocking it out completely. A very unfortunate thing, but once again showing the sacrifices that the Ukrainian armed forces continue to make to hold the Russians back in some fronts and push them back in others. Meanwhile, down near the Kremenna forest, we got to see the Russians run into a minefield, kind of taking care of themselves. We can see here the Russians off in the distance already hitting that minefield at the very beginning of the clip. I guess you could say they didn't mind the gap.
They should always be careful about, getting mines.
Man, I'm telling you. Also, a lot of people are asking, is the enforcer sick again? Yeah, pretty much. I got allergies in Florida, believe it or not. I've never gotten allergies, and I've never had allergies this bad. But I got allergies in Florida. I don't know why. I don't know what's down there that made me allergic or have like an allergic reaction. But I am allergic to Florida, apparently. South Florida, that is. Down there.
Maybe that's why the average Florida man acts the way they act, is because it's just the allergies.
Man, maybe they're going through like an endless allergic reaction to being there. I don't know.
Honestly, this Florida man, like I tell you, like after seeing the swamp and where the gators are at, I was like, you telling me that people just jump on those gators and wrestle them? I mean, that's a little bit crazy. I saw the Florida man on a short video wrestle a gator on the side of an interstate, and the gator bit his arm, and the guy just shook it off like it was no big deal.
Dude, honestly, man, I've seen some crazy things out of Florida. I saw this guy, man, he was in a music video, and he was talking about taking Shawty to the swamp, and then another guy was talking about tiptoeing in his Jordans. And I was just like, I don't know what kind of a type of music this is, but it's honestly just downright shenanigan music, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. I'm not gonna lie.
And another thing, folks, is that when we went to Florida, you wouldn't believe it. Y'all would not believe it. But the Florida people are real. Like, they're actually real. And they're in quite large numbers when you get close to the swamp. Like, they start getting prolific. Y'all think I'm kidding about that, but that's actually, like, a real thing. But beyond that, the beach was nice. I actually got to say, the Atlantic was very blue. Like, the waters of the Atlantic along the coast there, wildly blue. Really shocked by that. Because I always heard from my folks, because, we're from Alabama and we don't know anything, that the water in the Atlantic was like dark or brown. But it actually was like bathtub water clear, which was pretty cool to me. But the actual, the Billionaires Row was nice. But once again, you got to be a billionaire to live there. So, what does that count for? But the place behind Billionaires Row, that's where it got a little questionable. And also, another thing that I was wondering, we were walking around in the middle of the weekday in the afternoon, and we were like, where the people at? There was nobody out there. There was nobody anywhere in the city. We were walking around in a ghost town nearly.
Yeah, it really was a bit of a ghost town, but it was kind of nice though,
Man, it was a boom town, and then it turned into a ghost town.
It was a boom town. The town went boom, big explosion, and then they just had money. All of a sudden, money.
And another thing that really shocked me, folks, is how little the roads were kept up. There were loads of potholes and stuff, in their roads everywhere. Even on Billionaires, Island or Row or whatever it's called, the road had potholes in it. We were really shocked by that. Because, other places, even here in Birmingham, didn't have that many potholes. And we were like, wow, where's the money going? They're not even maintaining the streets really anywhere. We were, shocked by that. We were, whoa, I mean, might not be a chesty puller, but these roads aren't up to core standards.
Someone said, let's see, Snow White said, you went in it. Yes, we drove through it. We drove right through it. The roads, honestly, I'm with the enforcer on that. The roads were kind of shabby. I was like, you tell me this is Billionaires Row and they can't even keep the roads paved? That's kind of weird. Like we can keep the roads paved a little bit in Alabama, not much, but it's a little bit. They weren't really keeping them paved at all over there. It's like, I don't know if these people are getting in and out by helicopter or something. They don't have to use the roads.
Yeah, or a private jet, maybe. But we can see here the Ukrainians taking out drones near to the area of the Severonsky Forest, as the Ukrainians have continued to defend the forest voraciously against the Russian assaults, which continue to attempt to break out and reach Toretsk and Lyman. A few moments later, and they continue to hit the Russian drones.
And they're really hitting them good, like they really know how to hit these drones right on the right spot.
Man, look at that. And also, someone said, so you didn't even give Texas a chance. Interesting. No, Texas has actually been given a chance more than any of these other places. Matthew's been out there like 3 times. We've only been to Seattle and Miami once. So Texas got a big chance. And it's still in the running in a way. We can see them flying on through.
Oh.
And that's the end
of
of
the propeller unit. Oh, look, they changed their logo.
Bro, they changed the logo. They did a rebranding. And we also got to see here a Russian running over an anti-tank mine again. Take a look at this. Also, Matthew, I got to say, real shout out to the people who get offended on our behalf about how we're living our lives. Like that person who was like, oh, so you didn't even give Texas a try? It's like, well, hell, it's their life. It's like, if we did or didn't. I mean, that's kind of our thing,
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was all for Dallas, and that was still an option. And it still kind of is an option to an extent, but it's kind of lower down on the totem pole. Not dishing on Texas, by the way. Like, nobody take that as I'm dishing on it. But Florida and the flatness of it's kind of got me, shook. Because after seeing how flat it was down in South Florida and driving around that for a bit and sort of getting, a little bit put off by it, it reminded me of Dallas being flat. And I was like, I don't know if I want to be somewhere where it's flat like this, because I have a feeling that if I went back to Dallas, I'd be a little bit put off by it too, but I don't know.
Man, I remember telling Matthew that before the trip. I didn't say a lot of this on air, I think, but I was telling Matthew, I was like, dude, it's going to be insanely flat. You're going to feel like you're going crazy down there from how flat it is. He was like, no, it'll be good. It'll be a really cool place. Then we went down there. And when you got on the interstate overpasses in the Miami area, you would look out and there wouldn't be a single hill, a single elevation feature. It literally was like Minecraft creative mode on the super flat worlds where there's no elevation features and they're just building everything on that flat plane. Literally just like that. And I was like, man, listen, folks. I gotta be honest with y'all here. Some people like flat, but if you like flat, you can date Taylor Swift. I'm here looking for curves, all right?
Joke, man. Come on. I've heard this so much.
Dude,
honestly, man, I feel like I would become a Florida man too if I had to drive around that flat South Florida area too long. I felt like a couple of times they're going around the grid, the flat grid that they have in South Florida. I was gonna just jump out of the rental car and start running up and down the median, growling at the car sitting at the red lights. It was honestly making me feel crazy.
Man, I used to be crazy, but then they put me in a rubber room with rats, and rats made me crazy. Crazy? I was crazy once. They put me in a rubber room filled with rats, and rats made me crazy. I don't know if you know that joke. I don't think you do. But
no, I don't know that at all.
Damn
I don't know anything about rubber rats or anything like that.
That completely, that just completely flew over your head. Delivery was poor. Piss poor on my end. But beyond that, moving on into the remainder of our news, we did get to see that a Russian assault was repelled near Seversk, which we can see in this clip right here. Repelled by the 31st Brigade. And I see, let's see here. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Got a lot of LMAOs on that joke, Matthew. You may have heard it 9 times, but that was new for the audience.
That was fresh for them.
Man. I always loved
we drove around South Florida so much, folks, that we actually turned in the rental car early. That's how crazy we'd gotten and how tired of it we'd gotten so quick. We were like, I think we've seen enough of this. Let's turn in the rental car early. I think we've looked enough. And then we just sort of wandered around the Palm Beach area for the rest of the time.
Man, honestly, it was so flat. It was insanely flat. Y'all wouldn't believe how flat it was. It was so flat you can't even really get a handle on it until you see it. Like it was so flat. It's like someone went through there and leveled the whole place and then built on top of it. Like it was just insane, honestly.
And also, then we rode the Bright Line train too. We'll have to talk about that later as well.
Okay,
Oh dear.
I'm not gonna diss on the Bright Line too badly, man. Like they ran it like a plane, but it actually wasn't a bad train. Like when you think about it.
That wasn't too bad, but I have a lot of talking to do about that, so we'll have to hit that later.
I have critiques. As well, but it wasn't too bad. It's just that they did things that didn't really make sense considering that they're not running an airline, they're running a railroad. But anyways, also someone said, so you're going to Seattle. Actually, not quite. We'll get to that all in the question segment. But we can see them that they knocked out loads of motorbikes around the Seversk area, and that was the end of the clip. But oh boy, howdy. Take a gander at that, folks. The 31st Brigade out there taking care of business. Moving on from that, and down near Soledar, we also got to see the Madyar's birds hitting Russian targets. We'll only be able to show a small part of this clip. Madyar makes his clips 10 minutes long, so unfortunately we can't really show a lot of them due to time constraints. Gillian Evans said, you should relocate to Snowdonia. I would, but becoming a citizen of the UK is actually a very difficult process. And also I'm an American. I've got to stay in America. Like, that's the reality of it. But we can see them knocking out a grad in a pretty horrific explosion right there. We can see them also flying into the shed. They're about to take Shuddy to the shed. And we can see them flying into seeing the little BMPs and also the shed, the literal shed in there. Oh, and they got it, and the whole thing's on fire. It's cooking.
Wow, look at that. They cooked it to finishing.
Man, they cooked that thing to smithereens.
They did. I was choking, so I was trying to come up with the right words, but I was too busy trying to stifle it.
And that's the end of that clip right there. We're actually going to cut this Madyar's bird clip short right there and move on down towards Chasiv Yar, where we got to see the 427th Regiment of the Radrograd unit hitting Russian forces. And they always do a great job. They know what they're doing, folks. The ATF suggests that we move to Pyongyang. Personally, I'm not looking to go to a re-education camp. I'd have to pass on that one.
The ATF suggests that. That sounds like entrapment.
Yeah, that kind of does, honestly. And that also sounds like treason to me. ATF, are you good?
You casually want to commit treason and also go there with your suppressors? You could get 3 felonies all at once.
You could be put on death row in North Korea, which means you're executed tomorrow with no appeals.
Would you be more concerned about what Kim's going to do to you or what the ATF's going to do to you?
Huh. Honestly, man, I'd be more concerned about what the ATF is going to do to me.
Man, I tell you, I don't know. Like, between the two, it'd be a close one.
Honestly, it is a pretty close one. The ATF is a nasty one, though. They go after folks who don't even deserve it. But we got to see here that the Ukrainians were hitting Russian positions in Bakhmut. This is actually near the old MiG monument, which used to be famous during the Battle of Bakhmut because most Ukrainian units would take a picture in front of it before they moved into the city. A lot of people in the chat are talking about the certain thing that's cooked in Florida, and I think that y'all might be right. I am allergic to that sort of a thing, and Walter White has personally tested me to make sure that I was allergic to it, and I was. So I think y'all are right on that one. But moving on into Pokrovsk, we also got to see the Russians were attacked by the Muramasa unit down near the city of Pokrovsk. Holy smokes, folks, they are slamming them. Mike Garcia said,
like the Ukrainians are going like spear fishing with those like darts in the front.
So, hold up. What does the word Florida mean, folks? Let's see. Someone said it actually was a bastardization of a native word, which meant flat land. But no, it actually means, Florida means abounding in flowers in Spanish, which I don't really know how he got that, because when we went down there, all the grass looked nearly dead. So I don't really know where it was abounding with flowers, because I never saw I actually didn't see a single flower in Florida.
Someone said Florida means garbage.
Florida.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, it wasn't garbage in Florida. I mean, it wasn't my thing personally, but it wasn't garbage.
No, Net Dragon. Florida doesn't mean garbage. New Jersey means garbage. I'm just kidding, by the way. The people from New Jersey are about to go off. They're going to be like, I'm going to come beat your ass. And I'm going to be like, okay, that's kind of fair.
You're picking the one place where the mob likes to hang out and says it's garbage. What the hell's wrong with you, man?
They're going to take my ass to the Pine Barrens down here. Like, they're going to
take you out to the swamp.
Man, they gonna bring a fussy to the swamp. Put a cap in my hair, like it said. But anyways, what you know what? Let's say something good about New Jersey. What does this place look like? We need to get a street view. What does it look like? See, folks, this is classic Americana right here. You can't top it. New Jersey, greatest place in America. Y'all want to go down to Redneck, New Jersey? I bet y'all didn't even know that existed. But like down here in this area. It's actually called Redneck, New Jersey. Didn't know they had rednecks up there, but they do, and they're just like Alabama rednecks. So let me drop y'all down here, and y'all will be amazed. Doesn't this look like the South, Matthew?
Not really.
Okay, well, you were supposed to agree. I mean, it didn't really look like it, and I said that a little bit too quick to actually think it out. But yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like the South, man. I'm glad that you agreed with me there. But there's rednecks living in this area of New Jersey. It's like the only area in America where the rednecks exist outside of the South. No joke. But anyways, moving on from that, some of y'all are probably wondering, what is New Jersey? What was Old Jersey? Well, I'll actually answer that for y'all. I know a lot of people don't. That's Old Jersey right there. This little island right off the coast of France. It's owned by Britain. So when they came over, they just named the place New Jersey. Like literally that was it. So if you're ever wondering where was the Old Jersey, there it is right there. And that's also where Jersey cows come from, in case you are wondering. But anyways, moving on from that and down the way, we got to see some Ukrainians in a boat. They took Shorty to the swamp with some guns. Pretty nice little riverboat here. They were patrolling the Dnipro in it, and they got some really cool pictures out of the whole deal as well. Pretty neat. But moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also got to hear the sound of Ukrainian drones over Krasnoperkopsk, which appears to be letting us know that there's an ongoing attack. Don't y'all hear it?
This sounds like what you'd hear if you punched in sleep sounds on YouTube.
Dude, and then you hear sound media or something like that in the middle of it.
Audio jungle.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's it. You hear that over and over and over every 5 minutes or so. But that's the end of that clip. And now it's time for us to move on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 1155 of the war. Technically, this is from about 2 days ago. But he's only been doing press conferences over the past 2 days, which are incredibly long, and I feel like this address is a pretty good one to cover, considering that it's talking a lot about the current peace propositions that the United States is trying to move on to the Ukrainians. So, without further ado, here is the speech. Peach!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні майже увесь день присвячений роботі з партнерами, різні формати. На середу готуємо зустрічі з партнерами з Європи, Британії, Франції, Німеччини та Америки. Зустрічі, які можуть наблизити припинення вогню та реальний тривалий мир. Зараз, після Великодня, весь світ бачить справжню проблематику, справжню причину того, чому бойові дії тривають. Саме Росія є джерелом війни. Саме з Москви має прийти реальний наказ російській армії на припинення вогню. І якщо такого жорсткого російського наказу на тишу немає тиші. Дійсно, на Великдень не було повітряних тривог. І були деякі ділянки фронту з тишею. Отже, це можливо. Можливо, коли саме Росія йде на зменшення вбивств. Але все одно на цей Великдень були російські штурмові дії. Були удари та обстріли, були втрати, в тому числі втрати цивільні. Сьогодні російських ударів ще більше. Тільки на середину сьогоднішнього дня, на 13-ту годину, було майже 3 тисячі обстрілів, штурмів, інших ударів. Було застосування російських ракет, шахедів, майже 90 авіабомб, застосування важкого озброєння, дронів. Російські атаки тривають по всьому фронту. Ввечері очікую нову доповідь головкома Сирського. Тобто Росія відкинула не лише американську пропозицію повного і безумовного припинення вогню, яка була зроблена ще на перемовинах в Джиді більш ніж місяць тому, але й вчорашню пропозицію. Пропозицію і надалі після Великого дня робити все для тиші. Все це ще раз демонструє, чого насправді хочуть в Москві. Тим не менше, Україна зберігає свою пропозицію не завдавати ударів щонайменше по цивільній інфраструктурі. Ми очікуємо чіткої відповіді з Москви. Ми готові до будь-якої розмови. Як це забезпечити? Є очевидний, найпростіший, найбільш надійний шлях саме припинити удари ракет та далекобійних дронів. І це автоматично гарантуватиме збереження всієї цивільної інфраструктури. Саме припинення вогню реальне, тривале, має стати першим кроком до надійного і тривалого миру. Представники України і на зустрічах в Парижі, які були, і на зустрічах в Лондоні цього тижня матимуть основне завдання, першочергове, саме щодо безумовного припинення вогню. І саме це має бути початком. Мир приходить у тиші. І тільки коли є справжня тиша, і коли люди довіряють усьому процесу перемовин, тоді можуть вирішуватись фундаментальні питання. Ще одне. Я дякую всім нашим воїнам, які захищають Україну, які тримають позиції, які забезпечують можливість для дипломатії. Сильна дипломатія – це дипломатія сильної держави, сильного народу. Всі наші люди, які на захисті України, всі, хто допомагає, всі, хто підтримує Україну, дякую вам. Дякую. Пишаюся нашими людьми. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 1155 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And that's going to be moving us on into the second segment where we get to talk to all of y'all. And I got to say that we are absolutely happy to be back. We have loved having y'all here tonight. And while we have gone through hell and high water to make it here tonight to be able to run this stream again, I do have to say that we are entirely honored and greatly appreciative to always be the ones that get to cover the news to y'all. We're entirely honored to know that so many of y'all waited the entire 5 days that we were gone to be able to hop back on the stream again tonight, because the viewership has been crazy. 60,000 people have watched this stream in under 2 hours. At the peak viewership was 10.2 thousand people. Truly an absolutely incredible thing. I cannot say how amazing it is to know that we get to be y'all's primary source of news, and that y'all count on us practically every single day that we're on air to be able to hear what's actually going on around the world. If it wasn't for folks like y'all, we would have never been able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't have people to tell the news to, and we owe y'all everything in the service of running this channel. I've got to give y'all a huge thanks for watching again so far tonight, and I hope that a lot of y'all stick around, because we have a very fun segment to go through for the remainder of the stream where we get to talk to all of y'all. And this segment is always an incredibly fun segment. We get to talk about literally anything and everything. There are no bars hold. We will probably start telling y'all a lot tonight. I know that this is generally where it's going to be going. About our trip, we took a lot of pictures, we took a lot of videos, and we have an absolutely incredible story to tell y'all. A story of an airline that shouldn't exist. And I wouldn't, like, I actually told Matthew, I was like, man, we're actually going to talk positive about this trip. That was yesterday. Today is a different story. Like, today, I have to include the absolute slandering of American Airlines, because they suck so bad, It's unreal. I'm gonna have to actually take a little minute to talk about that. Hopefully, we're able to create an outrage over it, so that way they'll improve their shitty service. Because I think it's an absolute disgrace that that company holds the American name for their airlines, and yet their service is the least American thing that I've ever seen. It is the worst possible. It is a poor representation of the nation that their airline is named after, and also the company sucks in general. So we will be getting into all of that here in a little while. But before we get into that, actually, you know what? I want to go out of our way just to get this out of the way because I'm chomping at the bits to do it. I'm actually going to tell y'all the little story of our American Airlines journey today, or as I should call it, our trip through hell. So let us start, Matthew. Where should we begin? Should we begin at West Palm Beach, where the whole thing began, or should we begin somewhere else?
Honestly, like it's really just summed up to this. The gate agents were rude as hell. The flight attendants were pretty honestly, they weren't like super rude, but they weren't friendly either. They were just kind of like meh. I'm not one to like really complain about how people like act. If somebody's not super like outgoing or something, I could care less because I'm personally not myself. But at the same time, though, you can detect when people have attitudes, and I detected that the whole time we were on the flight. Honestly, man, like, I'll tell you all this. We flew Delta to Seattle and we flew Delta down to Orlando. Excellent flights, excellent everything. It was perfect. It was great. Of course, there was some bumpiness on the flights, but who cares about that? That's just, the nature of air travel. But the American Airlines ones were no good, mainly because of the gate agents being rude as hell. And also, they made a connecting flight where you had to run across the Charlotte airport like a maniac. And even with that, you could barely make it to your connecting flight. We almost missed it. Luckily, it was delayed, though, so we were able to get on it. And then we would try to figure out, is the plane even here right now? Then we got into an argument with all the gate agent people because they wanted to be so rude about it. They wouldn't even answer a simple question, which is ridiculous. But honestly, man, that kind of sums it up, really.
I'm going to give you all the scoop of what I ran into. So I wake up this morning in the same condition I am now, nose running. Well, my ears hadn't gotten to the point they were about to explode yet, but nose running, coughing, sneezing, whole 9 yards. Not really feeling that great. Like, not feeling sick, but not feeling great because of the allergies. We go to the Palm Beach airport here. We go to Concourse B. We get on this plane right here. It's actually that one exactly. It's an A321. And so the guy at the gate can't open his mouth worth shit. So he gets on the intercom and he's like, hello to American Airlines, we're having boarding flight, something. So he starts bringing in the boarding groups, and we're like boarding group 8. So, y'all know we're flying economy. So, like, honestly, like, who doesn't fly economy? It's not like we're made of money. So we were flying economy. So the guy says, by the time he's getting to our group, if you have roll-on bags, you need to get a pre-tag. You need to get a pre-tag. So I was like, I think I need to get mine pre-tagged, Matthew. I mean, mine rolls. And he was like, yeah, you might need to. So I went over there, and then I turned around to Matthew. I was like, I don't think I do, though. I mean, like, everyone else's bag is pretty sizable, and while mine rolls, it's not really that big. So then I go up to the guy who's making the announcements. I was like, hey, does this one count? Like, and I held up my bag to him, and he was like, no, you're good. And I was like, what the hell, dude? I was like, why give me the attitude? I was like, I asked you this so politely. I was like, man, what an ass. So, anyways, get through the gate, sit on the plane, and then they're like, okay, everybody, shut the hell up. Like, this is a flight attendant, pretty much. Like, this is what they were talking like. Okay, everyone, shut the hell up. Yeah, we're late. That's not our problem. Y'all bitch about it. Whatever. We're going to be late. Most of y'all are going to miss your connecting flights. Kiss our asses. We're not telling you shit. And you're going to burn in hell. Like, that was pretty much like the speech they gave when we were taking off at the airport. They already sounded angry. They hadn't even talked to anyone. And they were like, don't ask us shit. Don't ask us questions. Kiss our ass. Like, and they did it again, like, when we were taking off. And I was like, wow, these people are just rude as shit. So then we start hearing different things from the pilot because the pilot gets on the intercom. And don't you remember, man, he was just like the mumbler. He was like, hey, everyone, thank you for picking American Airlines. We're going to be going through some weather. And then he finally got to the part where he's like, actually, we're going to only be about 5 minutes late. 5 minutes late, everyone. That's great news. And I was like, 5 minutes late. I was like, well, when are we going to be landing then? I was like, it sounds like we might be able to reach our connecting flight. So the flight attendants come around and they're giving you like those little cookies, which I can't really diss on, like the Lotus cookies, biscuits, whatever you call them. They're all right. Like, they're not bad. So I get the cookie from the woman. And, like, I asked the woman, I'm like, excuse me, ma'am. Like, and I asked it very politely, by the way. Like, I always try and be as polite as possible because I work those jobs. Well, I didn't work as a flight attendant, but I work jobs, like that where you deal with the public. I know that you don't want to deal with shitty people, so I try to be as nice as I can. like we work a job where we deal with the public every day. We deal with hundreds of thousands of y'all every day. So, we try and be as nice as possible unless someone's going out of their way to be an ass. So I sit there and ask, oh, excuse me, ma'am, do you know when the flight's going to be landing? And she was like, hold on a minute. And then like just started like flinging her drinks around on that little tray. And I was like, okay, she now seems angry that I asked a question. And so then finally she sits there and whips out her phone and like angrily swipes through it. It's gonna be landing at this point. Yeah. And then she like rolled her eyes and then rolled the tray away. I was like, what the hell? I was like, it's not my fault that your shitty ass airline like can't fly a plane. It's like, I'm just asking you a question. It's like, you don't have to get rude about that. So we deal with that. I was like, these flight attendants are shitty. There's one of them that acted like a diva. There's two of them that acted like they couldn't be bothered. And they all acted like they hated their jobs. And I'm like, I don't even know how the hell y'all hate your jobs because you get free accommodations wherever you go. So, like, if you end up in West Palm Beach and you live in Detroit, you're going to be in a hotel in West Palm Beach for the night. It's like, it's not that bad. Like, don't bitch about it. So anyways, we finally make it to Charlotte International Airport, which I can only describe as the ass pit of international airports. It is the worst one ever. Like, it's just the worst. Nothing can beat it. And so we make it in there, and guess what, folks? They were supposed to drop us off over here in B gate. No. They drop us off all the way over here at A gate. And we have 15 minutes to make it all the way. I think it was down here somewhere, right around
at the very end of this thing.
Yeah, down here actually, all the way down here. So we have to run all the way across this thing. Matthew almost had to go the full length I went when I did it, but I had to go all the way from there, where mouse cursor circling, all the way up to here in like 20-something minutes. We had 15 or 12 or something. We had to make it all the way from here all the way over there. No one wanted to help you. Like, everyone was like, kiss her ass. Like, yeah, we're late. Haha, that's funny. We like to make your life hell. So kiss her ass, go figure it out. So we go running through the airport, literally running, folks. We are like sweating like dogs when we make it to this other side because it's like a 1.5 mile like run. So, and by the way, I'm not like perfectly physically fit. So if someone's going to come in, you can't do a 1.5 mile run. You don't sound like core material. Yeah, I'm not in the core. So, take that and do what you will. So we make it to here. And then Matthew,
let me take it from here.
Let me take it from here because this is your part of the story.
So I ran across the whole airport. And at this point, I'm not out of shape, by the way, like really badly. So I was actually like, going pretty fast. I wasn't too badly winded, but I was still a little bit winded. Say what?
I was lagging behind a little bit, like a couple.
He was lagging behind a little bit. So I got there first. I woke up to this lady at the check-in at the gate. I'm like slightly winded, like, excuse me, ma'am. Like, has the flight already left? We had assumed the flight already left because it was scheduled to take off like a minute before we got there. She says, look at the sign on the left. I said, what sign? She said, the sign on the left, that one there. So I'm like, okay. So I look to the left. There's like a sign that says, read the instructions on sign B. So I look at sign B. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like some Jack in the Box routine? So I look over there to the right, and there's a woman standing at another gate. So I'm like, okay, since I can't get an answer out of this woman here because she's very rude, let me go to this other one and see if I can get an answer out of her. So we walk over there. We ask her a question. She's already fighting with some other dude that's standing there already. She's arguing with this other guy about being rude. This other guy was trying to confront her about being rude, this second gate agent. I was like, oh, this is not a good sign. They're already fighting with somebody else about being rude. So then we walk up. She's babbling on to this guy about being rude. So we're finally like, hey, we got to ask a question. Like, this guy's going to keep babbling on forever. So we say, excuse me, ma'am, can we ask you? I'm talking. Excuse me a minute. We're like, what? We're just trying to ask a quick question. Can we ask you, is the plane here? I'm not finished.
Wait, dude.
We're like,
remember,
are you crazy or something?
I initiated that dialogue. Remember, Matthew? We made it over there, and we were standing there, and we stood there for 3 minutes, y'all. By the way, by the time we're standing there, the plane technically has left by this point, like at least from what we know, because its departure time was 4 minutes before we even made it to this asshole. So we make it up to this asshole, and we're sitting there for 3 minutes, and this guy's sitting there. What do you mean the plane's not ready? And this stupid ass person is running this guy in circles for 3 straight minutes. So I finally was like, look, I don't know if the flight's left or not, but we got to figure this out. So I said, excuse me, I didn't interrupt y'all, but it's just really quick. Excuse me, I'm not done talking yet. And then Matthew took over. He's like, look, we just have a quick question. Has the plane left? I'm not done talking yet to this guy. I'm not done talking to him.
Well, I think at that point I said, she said something. I can't remember what she said at that point. She said, well, it hasn't left yet because it hasn't left yet. I said, why not? First she said something like, I don't know. I think she got stumped on that one. She didn't know really what to say back to that. And I was like, well, why not? Because at that point, I was like, why is this lady being so rude? I'm like, I can accept no for an answer. Like, she doesn't know. It's like, why is she being so rude about it? So then she went something like, I don't know. I said, so what we're supposed to do is wait around and figure out. I said, how come you don't know if a plane's here or not? I said, aren't you the gay agent? And she's like, I don't know. I think Andrew said something from that point forward. But at that point, I was like, okay, this is useless. So we walked over and looked at the board, and it turned out it was delayed, so we were good.
So really quickly though, you forgot this part, Matthew. So I sit there because this dumbass is not explaining shit. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like if this person runs into the stream, they were an absolute dumbass and a smartass simultaneously. So they are just giving us a run around in circles. So I'm like, screw this asshole, and we're gonna go find someone else to get an answer. So I look up this stupid ass hall right here, man. Do you remember this one? And I said, come on, Matthew, let's go. Because I saw someone standing down at the end of it where it looked like the plane was going to take off. So I walked past this asshole, and then they go, whoa, stop right there. You can't go down there. You need to go back there and sit with the rest of those people. Like, I'm like, what the hell do you mean by these people? Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, what, honestly, I'm not going to lie. That sounded racist. Like, to be entirely honest with y'all, it sounded like it had a racist overture to it. So I'm sitting there like, what the hell do you mean? And so I'm like, can you just answer the damn question? If the plane is here or not. They're like, yeah, it's delayed.
And then at that point, the guy that was already fighting with a gay agent, this older fellow, he turned to us and like started yelling, "They're not gonna tell you nothing. They don't know crazy. What the hell they're doing. They're not gonna tell you nothing because they're stupid." I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Thank you for that." Like I can see that for myself. I'm like sitting here like looking at this person with my own eyes. I'm like, okay, now I got this crazy dude like over here yelling in my face about how crazy the gay agent is and how rude they are. The gay agent sitting there being like a loud smartass to me. I'm like, what the hell did we just walk into here? Like this is crazy.
But Alpha Dog said these people is racist. No, it was the connotation behind it. There was a specific kind of like an emphasis that was put on these people. They were like, no, you need to go back and sit with these people. Like it's like it wasn't just like you need to go back and sit with these people here. Like it wasn't said like that. Like there was an emphasis put on these people, and I was like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Like I don't really read into stuff like that a lot, but there was so much emphasis put on that. I was like, that seems to have like another connotation behind it. Rather than, go over there. But that person was an absolute ass. So, to put it shortly, we actually got the name of that person. So, if American Airlines ever, gets a riot enough and everyone pulls out enough pitchforks and they actually decide to look into this, we're going to make sure to report that person specifically for being one of the biggest assholes I've ever met. Like, literally, the only one I've ever wanted to go out of my way to complain on was that one. Like everyone else got a pass today. Like everyone was an asshole, but they get a pass. And I've never done that before on anyone. But this one time right here, I'm going to actually go to complain about that person because that was the shittiest kind of a thing that I've ever dealt with in my life. But beyond that, basically, y'all, the moral of the story is that I want to get out to y'all is that American Airlines sucks ass. It is the worst airline that has ever flown. They have terrible staff. They have terrible service. Their planes aren't even upgraded to the most modern spec. Delta Airlines has the beat in every single way. It is a horrific airline. I would not give them your business. To the 7,000 people watching live right now, I would go and give your business to Delta, United, let's see, what are the other legacy carriers, Matthew? It's Delta, United, and I think there's another.
I can only say Delta, to be honest with you, because I haven't ever flown United. I've heard horror stories about them too. I've always known Americans had a bad rap because I've literally seen a ton of like YouTubers like make videos specifically about American and how bad they were. I had never had a bad experience with American the last time we flew. I flew with them one time before and it wasn't too bad. It was kind of like just average, I would say. But this time was actually horrific. I was like, geez, man, these people are treating us like we're just like I don't know, like piss-ons or something. It's like, why are they treating? And it wasn't just us they were doing that to. They were doing that to everybody they were running across. So I'm like, it wasn't just because maybe they had a bone to pick with me or the enforcer or something. But no, it was they had like a bone to pick with everybody. It was just crappy service.
And also someone said, why would you expect aircraft to be upgraded to the newest standard? I don't know, because I'm paying for it. Like, I'm kind of paying to get on their plane. I would expect that they'd have nice amenities. Why the hell would I go with shitty airline when I could go to nicer airline for the same cost? Like, what would the point of that be? The consumers are always going to go for the better bang for their buck. So why would I get on American Airlines, which not only treats you like shit, but they don't even have any in-flight entertainment, when I could go to Delta and they actually have in-flight entertainment, their flight attendants are nicer, and their planes are nicer. Like, everything about the Delta service is far better than the American Airlines service. So why in the world would why in the world is that even a question? Like, what kind of a question was that? Like, why wouldn't you pick the shitty carrier? Well, because they're shitty. Like, that's like asking, why would you go with the shitty postal carrier instead of the better one for the same price? Well, because it's better, basically put. But with that, I hope that does.
Also, John said, just drive, dang it. No, we couldn't drive that, man. That was like 2,800 miles, like across the country. We literally went from one end of the country to the other. If we drove that, we'd be off air for months.
Yeah, we'd be off air for weeks. And also, someone said, I thought you were paying for a seat to go from A to B. No, like, that's not just it. Like, if that was it, you could just justify everything being shit. No, you're paying for it to be somewhat tolerable while you're flying from point A to point B. You're not just getting a seat. Like, you know, that goes against like the whole modus operandum of transportation. Like, ever since the dawn of time, people have always been competing to get you from point A to B in the nicest way possible, where it's not as shitty as it can be. Like, railroads were doing that before the airlines existed. Airlines started to do that to steal business from the railroads. Hell, even buses did that. Like railroads went out of their way, even at taking a loss, to add air conditioners into their rail cars back in the 30s, so that way they could try and incentivize people to travel by rail because it'd be more comfortable. Like it's always a competition to try and make it more comfortable to get from point A to point B. So why in the world would you not go with the other carrier at the same price that has better amenities and better service? At the end of the day, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. I hope that does address that somewhat well. And also, I see that Matthew's actually thrown up a ball. And Matthew, what are people saying about this? And also, someone asked, did you take the Bright Line? Yes, we did. We did take the Bright Line. And I'll actually talk about that for a second, because it was interesting. We actually landed in Orlando originally, here at the Orlando International Airport, which is the busiest airport I've ever seen. It was like packed with people. But we made it.
Wait. We should start from the beginning real quick. Just a real quick overview. We went from Birmingham. Then we went from there to Detroit for a connecting flight. Then we went from Detroit to Seattle, stayed in Seattle for a full day, and drove around literally everywhere we could in Seattle, including to the mountains, which we took a video of. And then we left on a flight the next day to Orlando, got to Orlando, jumped on a Bright Line 2 hours after that, took the Bright Line all the way down to West Palm Beach from the Orlando airport, and then stayed there for a day, then woke up today and took all the flights back here, and now we're back here.
You know, all right, there we go. You know what's actually crazy, Matthew? I never realized this, but the Brightline trip was 2 hours long, and it actually like went across half of the state of Florida in like 2 hours.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, to be honest with you. It wasn't too bad. Yeah,
and Brightline was interesting. My actual impressions are that it needs some improvement. I don't want to sound like a Karen with everything, but the train was actually really nice. Like, it actually was nice. It was fast. So that part of the service was as advertised. The problem is that coming from Amtrak, Brightline runs their passenger service like an airline. So they don't let you stand on the platform and wait for the train down there. They make you stand in the terminal, which is up here, and you wait for the train, and then you wait for them to tell you that you can board. And what happens is that there's a bull run that happens, because everyone builds up around like the cordon, and once they open the cordon, hundreds of people go flooding down the escalator to get on the train. And that, like, another thing that I didn't like is that they had assigned seating. And if you go on to Amtrak, Amtrak's pretty laissez-faire. I mean, you can bring anything on Amtrak. There's no security screening. That was another thing that I was like, what's Brightline doing here? They had like a little TSA style like security screening thing that they ran themselves, which I was like, that kind of takes away from like the niceness of the railroad, where you can just get like right at the platform and right on the train like you do with Amtrak. But you get on the train, and then they have assigned seating, just like an airplane. Like, you sit in like a seat number with a seat letter, and then you sit down. And also they gouge you on like the prices of food. Like, a hoagie is like $18 on this train or something. It's a pretty expensive.
Like I got robbed.
Yeah, I actually feel like we got robbed on that. Like, and once they get you on that train, you're captive. Like, you can't get off of the thing. So they like charge insanely high prices for the food. If they lowered the food prices, because the ticket rates are actually incredibly cheap, if they lower the food prices and pretty much remove all of the airline styled things like the security checkpoint and also like the almost like jet bridge boarding process, honestly, I think it'd be a great service. Like, those were really the only things I could like complain about with that. But beyond that, the Brightline was great. It was fast. That thing was going like 125 miles an hour the whole way. It was so cool. It was really neat. But the food pricing and the whole like let's run a train like an airplane thing, I was like, I'm not getting that. It's like, the whole point of a railroad is that it's supposed to be like really easy and efficient to do. You just go stand on the platform and wait for the train. There's no security screening. I mean, hell, with Amtrak, like, I don't know if any of y'all have ridden Amtrak before. Some of y'all probably have. With Amtrak, there is no security checkpoint. You literally just walk straight to the train. So you can bring anything you want on the train. Like, not that I'm saying, like people do that or, are looking for that, but it's just nice to have the liberty of just, walking through and not being treated like a criminal by some TSA-like organization and then just hopping right on a train. That's just really nice about that. But with the security checkpoints,
I kind of like being treated like a criminal. Like, after I start going through TSA so many times, I'm like, well, it's not too bad being treated like a criminal. Like, honestly, oh my God. Like, honestly, TSA, like, I'm joking, by the way. Like, I don't like being treated like a criminal. Most of the TSA was good. I think there's only like one bad like run-in we had. Honestly, TSA was doing pretty good this time. Like, it seems like they've gotten friendlier in most places. Because I remember going on the plane before and it wasn't so friendly. But TSA doesn't have a rap for being friendly at all. But they did like actually somewhat decent this time, being somewhat friendly. There was only like one bad run-in in Seattle, but that's typical. That's nothing unusual.
Also, this is what the inside of the Brightlines look like, which is pretty nice. The seats were comfy, and I actually almost went to sleep on it. Like, I think Matthew woke me up when I was like dozing off, but it was very comfy. It was very smooth. Like, the tracks are like glass smooth, and the thing gets fast. I mean, like, you're actually lapping cars on the interstate because the rail line actually passes by the interstate, like you can see right here. And so you're just, well, actually it's a highway, but you're just absolutely just blasting past cars the whole time. And I was like, whoa, I was like, this is just crazy. Like, no train in America ever does that. So that was wildly cool.
Wait, let's see. Let's see here. Someone said, Matt dislikes getting patted down. I never have gotten patted down, ever. In the history of flying, I've never been patted down, ever. In fact, I am put through the security line so fast, I'm like, well, why am I put through the line so fast? It's almost like make me think, like, why is that? Like, is there something wrong with me or something? It's like, they're throwing me through this line so fast, it's like, it's almost like odd. I'm like, huh. They always stop the enforcer, though. Like, every single time, like, hey, wait a minute, you come over here. And I'm like, oh, they're pulling him off to the side, but not me.
They patted down.
I don't like getting patted down, honestly. If I got patted down, I'd feel a lot different about the whole TSA process.
They patted down my balls in Birmingham. For some reason, the detector went off right on my balls. Like, no joke. So I got I actually got like groped before I got on the plane in Birmingham. I don't like when that happens. I did not like it that time. I'm like, look, like, there's nothing there. Okay, like, there's nothing. Like, you don't have to check. And then they check, and I'm like, I hate this. Like, I freaking hate this so much. That's why I like trains, folks, because I don't get groped before I get on the train. Like, and that was kind of like the thing with Brightline, is that, like, it's like, it's a train, so you should just be able to get right on it. But no, then they have a security checkpoint. They had a security checkpoint. So I was sitting there thinking, oh, great, I'm going to get fondled again. And then I did. And then I kind of felt like I missed out. But anyways, I'm just kidding, by the way, on that one. That was a joke. That was not real. So don't take that seriously. But beyond that, as everyone's like, balls of steel, maybe, but you, sir, are you ready to check my limp point? It's like, how dare you, sir?
Oh, dear. Oh, my God. And then all the airports have different rules. They're like, some airports are like, you don't have to take anything off. Like, keep your shoes on, belt on, everything. Even the glasses, like, keep everything on, just walk right through. And it's like, oh, thanks. And then some airports are like the Seattle one, where this guy in front of me absolutely got verbally assaulted by the TSA guy. I was just sitting there watching, like, damn, this TSA guy's like freaking like verbally assaulting. The guy in front of me that was getting verbally assaulted turned back and looked at me like, help. I was like, bro, I'm sorry, like, there's nothing I can do. And meanwhile, the TSA agent's like, I don't know where he's from. I think he's from like Uganda or something. He was like, you're done for the day. You're done for the day. I'm like, dude, you like freaking like ruined his day. It's like you're up here like yelling at this dude about taking his belt and his shoes off, and you can tell he was like nervous as hell. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, I think the TSA sees the nervous people and they intentionally like go after them or something. It's like, I'm like, come on now. I'm like, why you got to yell at the guy like that? Come on.
Man, he gave that guy a shakedown, man, honestly. Like, done for the day, done for the day. I was like, man, honestly, like, he might be done for
I
the
said,
day.
you're not done for the day. You got to work like the whole shift, bro.
Yeah, work, wagey. Like, it's, something like that. But anyways, let's see. Someone said, you don't get groped in Jordan or Amsterdam. Yeah, like that, like the whole security theater thing with the TSA is pretty dumb. Like, I'm actually going to say this, folks. I would actually, this might be a controversial take. I actually would be behind the whole government efficiency thing if they just abolished the TSA, because it is like the biggest waste of government money that has ever existed. It's literally security theater. They have never prevented a single attack from happening the entire time that they've existed. It's just for show. I don't like that. Like it's like on top of that, it makes you feel like everyone is suspected of being a criminal. It just doesn't feel right. Never has felt right to me. Honestly, like it makes you feel like you have gone from being a citizen to you're a slave, like being moved on to like some sort of transportation, to go to some other place to go work for your masters or something. It feels like shit. I don't like that. It feels terrible. They got to abolish it. Because everyone feels like that. Like everyone hates the TSA, and it's like, why in the world should anyone have to accept that? That's just wrong. Like it's wrong to make people feel like that. To get on a plane, and now they want you to do like the whole federal ID thing, so you have to show your passport to get on the plane if you don't have the federal ID, which is pretty much akin to showing your papers, like you're in Nazi Germany or something like that, or the Soviet Union. So it's only getting worse at this point, because now when you go up with a state ID, now they have to go show us your papers if you don't have a real ID. So now you got to show them a passport to get around the country or to get into a federal building and access federal services. So if you're a citizen of the United States, like you can't even get federal services anymore unless if you show your papers to the feds. Like that just seems to be a violation of states' rights to me and an overstepping of federal authority again.
Also, Stephen Urkel said in the chat, he said, do you have some form of haplophobia, the fear of human contact? Honestly, a little bit. Human contact is scary. But he said, after 9/11, we have to do our part to keep travel safe. And when was the last plane hijack? Now, here's my thing, Stephen. I have no problem keeping the airspace safe and the plane safe. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think TSA, being the organization it is, which is sort of inefficient, and also, why do the TSA agents have to be rude and to get their point across? It's like if someone's wanting to get through that line with something bad, that TSA agent being rude is not going to stop that nut from going through that line with something bad. In fact, if they were nice to the people, they might be able to see the people that are not responding normally, like that are a little bit off-putting. They might be able to spot that better if they weren't acting so rude and sort of nonchalant. They could probably spot it better by being more friendly to people. If someone's not responding to friendliness in a like appropriate way, sort of like an odd sense, they might be able to be like, hey, that person seems a little bit off or something like that. Like they're not acting right. They might look a little closer at the person, but I don't know. Like the whole security theater thing of act like a mean, tough security agent is really stupid to me. And I think that's why they act like that, is they think that makes them look tough and it makes them look intimidating. Which, in my opinion, that's just not effective.
So I'm trying to see here if I can get any facts, because I think y'all ought to remember some of them. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that happened. Y'all remember the one? I think it was an aircraft flying to Hawaii. You remember it, Matthew? And there was a guy who had like a small plastic bomb in his laptop or something, and it went off and it blew out a part of the cabin. Like, you remember that? And it killed 3 people or something.
I don't remember that.
Oh, well, I remember it. I remember it well, because I remember that people were like filming the gaping gash inside the plane after the guy, blew up. And it's like, that guy went through TSA and they didn't find that. That's an attack that they didn't stop. So, like, what was the security theater about? They didn't even stop the guy. Like, there's been loads of times that's happened, or something else equivalent has happened.
Also, someone said, don't pet the drug dogs. Andrew actually asked the TSA guy standing in the line, said, can I pet it? And the guy said, no.
Yeah, I was kidding around with the guy, like, clearly, and he was not having it.
He was sitting there bored the whole time, too. He was just literally sitting there staring at the line because he wasn't doing anything. It's like he was doing nothing. And you asked like that question of like, can I pet the dog? And it's like, obviously you can't pet the dog. It says on the vest, but it's like the guy was just like, no. It's like, okay, bro. It's like, he acted like he was real busy. It's like, yeah, he keeps staring, brother. That takes a lot of focus.
Yeah, he's but let's see. Someone said, I remember that one. Yeah, I don't know what it was called, but let's go pull up air incidents in the U.S. There ought to be a comprehensive list of those. So, let's take a gander here. These are all the ones just in California, so let's see. So they don't have them arranged by date. So that's unfortunate. Huh, yeah, so we won't be able to really easily go through this. Anyways, they haven't really prevented any attacks. That's commonly known, and the TSA is just a load of garbage. Like, they could get rid of that quite easily, and it really wouldn't change anything, in my opinion. But anyways, I think I just hit the microphone there. Hopefully that was not too loud. I think that probably blew everyone's eardrums out, though. Was that loud, Matthew?
Yeah, it sounded like a submarine going down or something.
Oh, well, hopefully it didn't damage the microphone too much because they just slammed the phone into a full speed on accident. But beyond that, it does appear that Russia targeted Kyiv in a mass ballistic missile strike tonight, which we showed earlier. And what is Russia's objective behind this? And it seems as though a lot of people are saying that Russia is trying to sabotage the talks. Some people are saying it's usual, and others are saying some other things. But Matthew, what are people thinking about it, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right. So 38% said Russia is trying to sabotage the talks, while 30% said Russia is getting revenge on Ukraine, and 27% said it's really just the usual, really. And I would say that it sounds like Russia is trying to sabotage the talks because they really don't want peace. So why would they go and strike a mass ballistic missile strike in Kyiv, literally right at the same time that the United States is beating up on Zelenskyy for allegedly not wanting peace? It sounds to me like Russia is trying to ensure the talks don't go anywhere, and that's probably what they're doing, somewhat at 38%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say that, in my opinion, I think the Russians are trying to sabotage the talks. They just do what they do. They're war criminals for the large part, and they like to make that fairly clear. And you have to be blind to not see it. And so with that, I hope that has addressed that well, at least the best I can, in my opinion. And with that, Matthew, it is time for us to get on to questions, because we rambled about so many things, about Brightline, about the plane, and all that sort of thing. But Matthew, I understand that we got loads of questions that we haven't gotten to. So what do we got?
Yes, so we are now going to jump into our first one, which goes to Ken Medlin, who puts in a $200 donation, a massive amount of support, and a huge shout to you, Ken, for deciding to support the channel in such a big way, and we do appreciate that very much. And of course, that does help keep the channel running, and that is the only thing that keeps these streams running, is the viewer support just like that. So huge shout to Ken for the massive, largest super chat of the night. He said, I gave the money to help, but just decided to not give my heartfelt comment. Just note, let us not be like the French and waiting to help some fight a tyrant.
Oh, the French. They've always been known for their excellence. There is the California champagne, inspired by that same French excellence. And that is Parmesan. But nevertheless, I thank you for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running, Ken Medlin. You are a massive thanks to helping this channel to keep on running. And we got to give you a great heartfelt gratitude here for choosing Enforcer Channel for your news every day. The competitors are falling out of the sky like flies, like the hot dog man, who is sadly no longer with us. He decided to take a break, probably permanently. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much once again, because it is folks like you who helped this channel to keep on running, and I have to agree with you. I don't think that we should sit around idly by. We should be supporting American and Western interests around the globe full on, without any pause or consideration for it. And so with that, I thank you so much for the massive support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it rolling. And so a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But a huge thanks to you so much once again.
Yes, indeed. And our next one is going to go to K-Dub Jankus, a longtime channel legend and longtime supporter of the channel also. And big shout out to K-Dub for the $50 support. And it's good to see you once again, K-Dub. It feels like a year. Honestly, that vacation felt very long. It's oddly enough, every vacation I take feels like it's been a year. When you come back, it's like, oh, everything's changed. Everything. The whole place has changed when you come back. But K-Dub said, you really don't know how good you have it until it's gone. And thanks for the intelligence, diligence, and relevance. And welcome back.
And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, K-Dub Janky. And I'm glad to hear that people really do appreciate this channel. Because when we're gone, many of our viewers are exposed to the open world of the content out there that isn't ours, that covers world news. And I'd say like 9 out of 10 times a lot of people are like, please come back, please! Because like, most of it's actually pretty rough. Like, I hate to say that, but it is. I think there's room for improvement for some. But nevertheless, I do thank you so much for the support and throwing in some kind words, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to make this channel possible. We wouldn't have been able to keep it running, and we wouldn't be able to have such a unique and great place for the amazing community of the Leaf Spring Army to gather around and listen to us yap all night, sometimes about things that don't even count, like talking about our plane trips around America. But beyond that, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Janky, who have been around for ages here on this channel, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We would have never been able to take several days off. We wouldn't be able to be back right now getting to run the show. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, by the way...
Oh, go ahead.
No, please go ahead, by all means.
I was going to say, because Activista said that maybe Hot Dog Man quit to spend more time with family that dislikes him already. Honestly, here's my theory. I think the Hot Dog Man quit or took a long break or whatever he's calling it. I think he's calling it a hiatus or something, but he actually basically quit by the sounds of it because he probably had to go seek actual employment, because I think his channel was failing so badly because it was already pretty low. Like, it was basically non-existent. But now he's probably had to go get employment, because I doubt that the channel was able to suffice as a full-time gig anymore. So I have a feeling that's probably what he did, and we'll probably find that out later, that this is actually what he's doing, because obviously his channel was getting no views. Like, he was doing stuff and getting like 500 views, 1,000 views, and stuff like that. That's not a channel that's succeeding. And honestly, like, the only reason it didn't succeed is because his attitude sucked. He'd probably make a good American gate agent, actually.
Dude, maybe he got a job at the TSA or something like that. I think he belonged there. But beyond that, I do have to say really quickly, folks, about that. That's what we're running with as a theory. The Hot Dog Man isn't getting burned out, because the reality is, folks, is that that's his source of income. Kind of like our source of income is also our channel. So if you take a break, you're not making any money. Like just to be honest with you all about the economics of running a YouTube channel, we don't get paid days off. And we don't get like anything like that. So when we're not working, we're not making money. And over the past 5 days that we've not been here, we haven't made a cent, like quite literally, because we haven't been making anything. So that's kind of how the business works here on YouTube, is that you pretty much have to constantly be working to make videos to, be able to make a living, or you have to make incredibly good videos, rarely, that get so many views it floats you for months. And you also have additional money to work off of to put into a production budget for your next video. That's really how this whole platform works. So there's no such thing as anyone taking a break. When someone's taking a break, they've either made so much money that they're not having to do it anymore, or they're making so little money they can't do it anymore. Those are really the two reasons why people quit YouTube. And I know that that's the case, because YouTube is a great job. Like, there are some things that are annoying about YouTube, but I absolutely love doing this. Like, I love getting to talk to y'all. This is my passion. And on top of that, like, we're our own boss, so we get to talk about anything and everything we want. We can throw motorcycles into the middle of the last segment of a war stream, or trains, or, anything else. We can talk about literally anything. There's no boss telling us that we have to keep focused, keep talking, we have to hit these points, we have to do these hours. We love it so much, the hours don't even really feel like hours. It's just, they feel like hours when we have to talk about them. But beyond that, we love doing what we do. So knowing that guy is saying that he's taking a break, it's guaranteed he's not making enough money to keep doing YouTube, so he's had to go find another job, which for him is like, he's allergic to that. Like, he's already said that. Like, remember Matthew, when I showed you that clip where he was like, oh man, I'd do anything but go back to manual labor. And he was like, playing a game or something. You remember that?
Yeah, he had to he was allergic to manual labor. Yeah. It's like, why is he acting like having a normal job was like traumatizing to him or something? He talked about having a normal job like it was something that was like only for peasants. It's like I've held normal jobs before, like while I was in college and things like that. It's like, it's not that bad. It's like, obviously when you deal with the public, it's not great, but he was acting like it was like traumatizing. Like he had more PTSD from that than he did the time of shifting gears in that truck.
Bro, shifting the second was nothing compared to working in a warehouse. But like, yeah, it's crazy to me that guy is just gonna kid about, like, not really kid about it, but completely gloss over that, like, oh man, I'm gonna take a break, I'm burnt out. It's like, no, he's going away permanently. He's gonna go and work at a Shell gas station or something like that. Not that anyone working at a Shell gas station is bad, but when we're talking about that guy, any job he picks up is bad because he's a bum. So like, that's just kind of the honest truth. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. at least the best I can about what's going on with the hot dog man. And what was funny is that he actually made that announcement right when we were flying over Minneapolis. No joke, because that's where he's at. Like, he's in that general city area. And we were flying right over Minneapolis from Detroit. And when we landed in Seattle, we found out that like 2.5 hours earlier, which was the exact moment that we were flying over Minneapolis, he had posted on this channel that he was going to be taking a break. So I guess we were flying overhead and he sensed it. He's like, I sense a disturbance in the force. I sense hardworking global news reporters are over me. It's done. I'm cooked. And then he quit or something. I don't know. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Maybe Matthew, actually, people who actually work at their jobs, like he has an allergy to it, like I have an allergy to Florida, so he had to quit for those reasons. I don't know. But
man.
Aw, man, it's time to get back to selling hot dogs. Aw, man, what's uptown? Or more so, what's up, dog? Ha 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 ha. What downtown west? Ha ha ha. The Stone Arch Bridge. Aw, man. You know, one of the interstate bridges collapsed here in the city a while ago. Did you know that?
I actually, I think I'd heard about that.
I think it was the Interstate 94 bridge because it looks new. Let me go pull that up. The I-94. Yeah, it was actually. Oh, it was the I-35 bridge collapse. Let me go show you this one, Matthew. It's a hell of a collapse. Let's see here. There it is. Whole bridge came down.
Oh, geez, man, that's tough. That's like your worst nightmare.
Well, I think the whole reason why it came down is because Hot Dog Man was probably on the work crew for it. Oh man, I'm not screwing in that rivet. That's too much for me. Oh man, it's time to smoke some weed. And then the whole thing came down. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that well. It's a very interesting thing. But nevertheless, it is time for us to move on to that next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to none other than BC Skyman, another channel legend. I think he's already left for the night, sadly, but thank you very much, BC, if you're listening tomorrow for that $50 super chat and helping to get the channel running once again. And of course, everybody knows BC Skyman is a longtime channel legend, a pillar of the community. And he said, so glad to have you guys back tonight, and I hope you get to feeling better soon. And after Yanukovych was kicked out of Ukraine in 2014, Poroshenko, the new president, was responsible in building the military to be able to fight back, and many don't realize it.
And I thank you so much for the support, BC Scam. And I didn't bring that up earlier for time's sake, but you're absolutely right. Like, Ukraine couldn't retake Crimea if it wanted to back then because that would be an open war with Russia. And the Ukrainian military was not ready to fight the Russians back then. Like, they were so bad off, they were going to lose. I mean, they were getting, like, the Ukraine was actually having a really tough time fighting the separatists backed by the Russians in the Donbass, much less actually going up against the Russian army in a full-scale war to retake Crimea. So, like, you know, the claim, why didn't they take it back then? It's like, that's a really goofy claim. They weren't even ready to take it back then because they were literally breaking free from the yoke of being an oppressed Russian puppet that didn't even have an effective military. So you're dead on the nail with that. But still, I thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, BC Scam, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to keep this channel running for years. And I got to thank you massively for being an old guard and the channel legend, because folks like you have been making this channel possible for years. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And also, folks, I really can't hear my voice well, but I've lowered it a good bit, like an octave or two. I'm actually speaking at my normal speaking level, and I gotta ask, by the way, the sinuses are like making my voice sound different a little bit, even to me. I can't really tell, but how does my voice sound, folks? Do I sound like an actual radio announcer now, or do I not? I'm very curious about that. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Richard Rohde, who puts in a 50. And Richard, also longtime channel legend, and thank you very much, Richard, for that $50 support as well. He said, look up the text of U.S. Law 22 U.S.C. 9546. It's part of the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, passed in 2017.
It's USC 95 what?
22 USC at 9546.
9546. Let's see here. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. So let's see here. When was this passed? When was this put into effect? Let's see. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah. Oh, whoa. Oh, look at that. That's kind of crazy right there. But let's take a gander at this, folks. 22 U.S. Code 9546. I know I'm not reading the citation properly, but we'll still work with it. This was actually in effect from 2000, in 2017 to 2018, which is kind of interesting, Matthew, because that falls under the this president's last administration, which is very interesting. But beyond that, it pretty much outlines that about 30 million US dollars of military support is to be provided for the state of Ukraine. And also, look at this, Matthew, to never recognize the illegal annexation of Crimea by the government of the Russian Federation, or the separation of any portion of Ukrainian territory through the use of military force.
But they said illegal annexation.
Aha, it's legal now. It's legal, I see. But
Crime is legal.
to condemn and oppose all of the destabilizing efforts of the government of the Russian Federation in Ukraine in violation of its obligations and international commitments, to support the government of Ukraine in restoring its sovereign and territorial integrity, to deter the government of the Russian Federation from further destabilizing and invading Ukraine and other independent countries in Central and Eastern Europe. And look, all this was figured out back then in 2018 and 2017. What happened, Matthew? What happened?
I think what happened is they took this this law right here and they said, let's flip it on its head and go with the opposite.
Man, I think that was the case. I think that was the case, but a very interesting find, and I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and pointing out that specific legislation in the U.S. Code. I got to thank you so much for the support and also pointing that out, because it's very interesting to see that that's actually legally binding, at least to a degree. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Marion Deemert, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Marion, as well, for that support. And of course, Marion is another longtime channel legend. I feel like I say that all the time about literally every super chat these days. But thank you very much, Marion, for that support. And we do sincerely appreciate it. And they said, Slava Ukraine and Hiram Slav and LSA. And what do you guys think about the peace terms to Ukraine for the U.S.? You guys rock. Hugs and great to have you back. Honestly, I would say on my end, the peace terms to Ukraine really don't sound like peace terms to me. It sounds like basically taking all the things that Russia wanted for Ukraine to capitulate and basically forcing Ukraine to try to take that. I really don't see any argument where anyone could make that they could say Ukraine should take that deal because it's fair. It's not fair whatsoever. They're giving up territory. They're abandoning NATO. They're also giving up Crimea. And basically doing everything that Russia wanted, like I said. So why would Ukraine ever agree to that? And also, why would any country force Ukraine to agree to something like that? It's just crazy all the way around. It's still crazy. It's insane. And it's just stupid. And it's never going to happen. I can tell you that right now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to completely agree with Matthew on all those points. And I also got to thank you massively for the support, Marion Deemer. And thank you for wishing us a happy welcome back, because we were happy to have a homecoming here tonight with all of y'all. And we know that every single one of y'all missed us because we missed all of y'all. It felt like we were gone for a year, honestly, like no joke. So we were very happy to be back. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel keep it running. I hope that it's addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Brittany Taz, also longtime channel legend, who puts in a $50 donation as well. And huge shout out to Brittany for that $50 support. And Brittany said, stay the course.
And thank you so much for the support, Brittany Taz. And we will make sure to stay the course as long as we can, as best as we can. We are trying to remain as apolitical and just report the facts. Sometimes some people don't like it when we're being apolitical. I tried to be apolitical tonight. Very apolitical. And someone came out of here and said, oh, you said that you weren't going to get into politics, but then you bashed the president. It's like, I didn't bash the president. I said that the plan is bad. It's like, that's not bashing the president. It's just speaking about the quality of the plan. Like, that's not saying if he's a terrible or a great president. It's like that every time we get on air. It gets tiresome. It gets boring because so many people drink Kool-Aid daily. Like, they'll be a Democrat and they just love Democrats. They can't do anything wrong. And then the Republicans are the same. And then we come on air and we just try and make sense of the whole thing, from all ends, and say whether something is good or not. And it doesn't really matter what political party or affiliation they're from. If it's in America's interest, we support it. And if it's not, it's not. Then people want to make it into a political thing because we're not agreeing with everything that their guy said. But beyond that, we are going to make sure to stay the course, because We always look out for American interests in every single way that we can. We always remain as politically neutral as possible here on this channel, and we hope that we continue to be a shining example of what some other channels cannot be. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And so with that, I hope that addresses that well, and we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, speaking of the other statement about what do you think about the peace terms that the U.S. is proposing for Ukraine, Little Bear in the live just said, what is Russia giving up? Because, of course, a deal requires both sides to compromise. So what is Russia going to give up to make the deal happen? Honestly, absolutely nothing. Like, somebody tell me in this peace deal that the U.S. is pushing on Ukraine, what is Russia giving up? Absolutely nothing. But what the U.S. will tell us they're giving up is they're giving up their ambition to take the rest of Ukraine, which, according to the U.S., is something that Russia is totally capable of doing after 3 years of losing the war. Russia is going to magically suddenly take over everything in a heartbeat, which is nonsensical. They haven't done that in 3 years. And they said it was going to be a 3-day military operation or a 3-day war. And it turned into a 3+ year war. And it looks like it could turn into a decades-long war if it keeps up at this pace. So Russia's giving up nothing, and we're just being sold bullcrap about what Russia is giving up in theory. So nothing. That's not a deal. That's just simply giving up. But anyways, moving on to our next one here. This one goes to none other than Jay Bagwell, who's a friend of the channel. Hey. And it's good to see you once again, Jay. And thank you very much for that $20 support. And we appreciate that. And Jay says, welcome back to the best war news channel on YouTube.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support. Jay Bagwell. Oh, I heard Matthew snot in the microphone. Oh, we got him, folks. Clip it. Hey, he did it too. Hey! But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much for the support, Jay Bagwell, and helping this channel to keep on running. And we are glad to be back. We missed all of y'all. We missed you, Jay Bagwell. You actually gave us a recommendation for a place to go, which was West Palm Beach. And we went there, and we took a gander around. And it was nice, very nice in some places. And then the swamp, which was, it was the swamp. Like, it actually was. But I got to thank you so much for being here, and we are happy to have you back, Jay Bagwell. We love to have all of the folks here, and we love to have friends of the channel like you, Jay Bagwell, an actual legitimate friend of the channel, here with us tonight. We're happy to have you, and I got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would not be able to make this thing possible. And take a look at this, folks. I actually want to show you all this. This is a really cool spot in West Palm Beach. This place right here. Take a look at that.
That is pretty cool. Look at that. We walked through there.
Now, we walked through here a couple of times, actually. It was really, really neat. Really locked it. This looked brand new back then, honestly. It still kind of looks the exact same now. But this is where we got off the train at West Palm Beach, which is the Brightline station for here. And look at that train, Matthew. Look at how clean it was. How nice and chic. It was so good. And look at that, Matthew. There's no wraps on the windows. You can look straight through. That's something that Matthew will know what I mean right there. But let's see. Very cool, though. But we got out and we walked straight to the hotel. It was a nice hotel in a nice part of town, and it was a very beautiful spot, actually. Billionaires Row was pretty neat as well. You can see a little bit of it here. This is what Billionaires Row looked like. Pretty neat. Pretty neat, actually. And I got to say, thank you for the recommendation, Jay Bagwell. Sadly, though, this place is out of our price range a bit. Because to be in the nice areas, it's really, really expensive. And to be in the areas that are kind of like rougher, it's actually quite expensive still. Let me see. Matthew, what was it? Gun Club Lane? Like Shooters Alley?
Gun Club Estate. You're looking at it right there, right below the airport.
Oh, yes. I see you know your judo well. Good one. And you, sir, are you ready to receive my limp? Let's see here. We need to move further back. It was somewhere around here.
Canal Road, like off the boulevard.
Canal Road, off the boulevard. Yeah. Man, I need to find that Canal Road off the boulevard. Where is it? Where is it, man? Like, I'm not finding it. Whoa. Look at that boiler. Where the hell is it? Dude, we're in the swamp. We took Shorty to the swamp. Let's go back to the swamp. Oh. Flatness.
It's so flat.
Bounds for miles in every direction. No end in sight. Let's see here. I think we're on this Flying Cow Road, dude. Like, weren't we? No, we weren't. We were like here. Where's that Yamato Road? Is that it? No. Slontana, Lakeworth, Stribling, Forest Hill. Okay, well, I mean, I guess we could show a place like this. Actually, where in the world was that street, Andy, that we went down and we were like, oh my lord, like, where was it?
It was over there by the airport. Like, zoom in below the airport. Yeah, Gun Club Estates. Like, go to the Canal Street right there in front of Gun Club Estates. Gun Club Road.
In front of it, but where's in front? Is that like up, right, left, down?
Gun
Where?
Club Road, like right there. Gun Club Road.
Yeah. So we drop it here.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. This. It reminds us of Montgomery a little bit. And it wasn't really green when we were there. It was like, everything was like brown and dead.
Well, see, my only problem with it is not necessarily the houses. It's just the prices of the stuff. Like, this stuff's not cheap.
Well, yeah, I mean, this stuff is like $1 million. Like, and like, that's kind of like the thing. It's actually not bad. Like, these houses are pretty common for like Alabama and stuff, but the prices are insane. Like, it's like $800,000 for that little house right there. And it's not even really a looker, like for 800,000, it ought to be nice. And that, and you kind of like live in those areas if you want to live around here. And even still for like a townhouse in that area, it's like $3,600 a month. And it's like, that just doesn't, like, it doesn't really, like, get the bang out of the buck. But honestly, Seattle really didn't get the bang out of the buck either. For, like, living inside of Seattle. Like, you would have to live out in, like, not really, I call it the boonies. It's not really the boonies. It's actually way nicer than the boonies. But you'd have to, like, live a good dozens of miles away from downtown Seattle to get anything good. Because even in Seattle, it was really expensive like that. So if you wanted to be in a nice place, it's going to be insanely expensive. And a lot of people are like, wow, call them Captain Obvious. They found out the cities are expensive. And yeah, that's actually fair. But there was this really cool place called Carnation. Or was it Duval, Matthew? Which one was it? Was it Duval or... It was Duval.
I think it was Duval.
Yeah.
We went into a Safeway here and got a this was actually the place. Like these things right here were pretty nice. These little things right here. They're actually much nicer than anything I've ever seen in Alabama by a long shot.
Yeah, actually really cool. And there was also this road here that came into town, which was really cool. Because you could actually, this was like in the dead of, actually, man, this was in April 2023. Everything was blooming when we were there, dude. This was apparently like a couple of weeks too early. But the town is like on the edge of the hill. So when you come in, it's like a medieval little town on a hillside, which is really cool. And I was like, wow, that's neat. And then there was also the town of Snoqualmie, which I bet is really expensive because it has an entire national forest named after it. But it was really cool. They had a railroad museum here. Take a gander at it. Look at that. Look at that.
Is that National Public Radio?
I think that's the Nickel Plate Road. I think.
Oh.
Let's see. Man, they actually run excursions on this route. I didn't know that. We did see that coach in real life. I think it's like an old Santa Fe, like executive car or something. And, oh, bro, they got the nice Claristory cars from like the beginning of the 1900s. Sweet. Bro, this is pretty cool, actually. It didn't look that good when we saw it, actually. They didn't have like any running rolling stock or anything around here. It's like completely empty and most of the stuff was like rotting. But I still find that stuff neat because it's a really cool historic collection that they had. Like, look, they even had a Great Northern RPO, which was really cool. RPOs stand for Railway Post Offices, which are really neat and a cool part of railroading history. But beyond that, the natural beauty of the place was astounding. Truly a sight to behold. Let me see if I can get you all on a street. Any street. Oh, dang, it doesn't... Oh, look, there's some of the stuff like that we saw. Actually, it's in the exact same spot as well, dude. That's actually pretty cool. But let's see here. I think if we get in this open field, you ought to be able to see what we're talking about here. Look at that. That's just wild.
That is nice. I do like the mountains.
Man, the mountains were impressive out here. But anyways, I do thank you so much for the support, Jimmy. Yeah, we found out that both places are a little bit too expensive for us. We would be on the budget menu, so we'd have to pick somewhere like Spokane, maybe. But that's not too bad either. It's actually in a pretty nice spot too. But anyways, thank you so much once again for your support, J-Bag. That help with this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Rick Galinchin, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Rick, as well, for that support. He said, welcome back, and I hope you guys enjoyed your trip.
Hey, thank you so much for the welcome back, and we did enjoy the trip. And I got to thank you massively for supporting helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. We are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Howard Mendelson, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Howard, for that support. And he said, I hear Bellevue calling. And he's talking about the insane asylum. He's not talking about Washington.
I was about to be like, oh, I was like, man, Bellevue was too expensive. But they did have this cool thing called the Kura Revolving Sushi Bar, which we went into and ate at. And it was as cool as you would think it is. And I got this bean fish. There it is, Matthew. It's the bean fish.
Bean fish. I honestly liked this place. It was pretty cool.
Man, they had so much good food. Holy smokes, folks. This place was worth every dollar. It was so good. It's amazingly good. We actually went here both days we were in Seattle. Just wonderful. And the bean fish. Oh, I forgot what the actual name of it is. I call it the bean fish. But the bean fish was sick. I love the bean fish. But beyond that, I got to say, big thanks to you once again for supporting the channel, helping to keep on running. But Bellevue might be calling sometime around. We might be going krasse. But nevertheless, thank you once again. We are on to the next one.
And we also have a $20 super chat from none other than Jose Diaz. Also, a longtime channel legend. And thank you very much, Jose, for that $20 support and throwing in the super sticker of the Doge waving the #1 flag. And we appreciate that very much, Jose. And Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you so much for the support. Jose Diaz. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel possible and keep it rolling. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to E. Johnson, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, E, for that support. Yeah, E. Johnson says, I believe the current admin does want peace. However, I think they don't care how much Ukraine will have to give up to have peace. And peace in Ukraine will mean lifting the sanctions and making money. And it's all about the deals and the money. And honestly, I think the pressure is on because, of course, there was a tentative 100-day deadline set to get the war wrapped up. And that deadline is starting to come right around the corner. And I think that's why the pressure is being put on Ukraine quite heavily, because they want a win. And, of course, who gives a damn if Ukraine gets shafted? It's all about that win. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to say, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I'd largely agree with that. I think that the price of peace is being a little bit overstated at this point, in my opinion, so I'd largely agree with that. But I do thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $20 super chat from S. Pedro. And thank you very much, S. Pedro, for that $20 support. He said, fun fact, the Port Chicago disaster was a deadly munitions explosion of the ship SSEA Bryan, a Liberty ship, and on July the 17th, 1944. It was a naval port town just east of the Bay Area, killing 320 and injuring 300 plus.
Now, let's go take a look at this. Holy smokes, folks. That thing blew up. 1 second, folks. Sorry, I was about to actually have like a severe like sneeze or something there, but man, it says an official photograph not to be released for publication. Well, well, well. Look where it is now, folks. It's being published. But beyond that, very interesting here. But I actually haven't looked into this one too much, or actually even heard about it. But I do thank you for sharing this, because I'm going to have to look into this a little bit more and figure out more info on it, because it seems like it was a pretty devastating disaster. Actually, it killed 44 people. But still, a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Man, you sound like you're suffering over there, man. Are you good?
I'm dying right now, honestly, man.
I hear like a bunch of, I'm like, what is that? But anyways, jumping into our next one here. This one goes to E. Johnson once again, who puts in another $20 donation. And thank you very much, E. Johnson, for that second support of the night. And he said, this is not just my opinion, nor is it political. It's just a sad fact. And LLT, LSA, and long live the Navy's silent service, aka submarines. Dive, dive, dive.
Hey, and long live the U.S. Submariners. And I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one. And also, now I got people saying, you're getting kidney failure. No, I'm not
Kidney
getting
failures.
Nah, kidneys aren't failing. I eat kidney beans. There's no way they can fail. I got many of them. But I'm just going through really bad allergies right now, folks. I'm trying to stifle cough, sneezes, and everything else in between right now. So it's getting rough. It's actually, the allergies are getting so bad, my eyes are actually watering. I'm practically crying at this point. Like, not from pain or anything. It's just from, like, the eyes watering. It's actually creating tears. So I'm trying to power through the best I can. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Kevin, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Kevin, for that $20 support and helping to keep the channel running. He said, hey, guys, I actually thought I was banned, so I've been gone for a while. I know you weren't banned.
No,
He said, I made an honest mistake, and the enforcer let me up. And glad you didn't hold a grudge.
Thank you for the support, Kevin. I don't hold grudges unless people come in here looking for fights. Then we ban them. But I think I forgot what it actually was. But I think you brought up something that let's see. I think I strongly disagree with it. Well, actually, I think you insinuated that I was trying to be political, which usually is where I start to get worn out fast. But I mean, I don't hold grudges. I mean, you said sorry. You didn't mean to step on any toes or anything. So I don't hold grudges over stuff like that. I mean, you apologized. I would hold, holding a grudge would be if someone didn't apologize and then just double down. Then I would probably hold a grudge. But you apologized and understood what we were doing, and I got to thank you for that. You're one of the few people who actually has come in with one idea and then actually understood what we were doing, and I appreciate that greatly. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, Kevin, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Philip Fixes LSA, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Philip Fixes, as well, for that support. He said, welcome back, Enforcers. And how about that trip down Church Street in Orlando that we didn't get to do last week, and start at Tampa and Church and head east? 3 stadiums await you, and Slava LSA.
Tampa and Church. Let's take a look. Tampa Street. Tampa and Church. I'm not finding a Tampa Street in Orlando. West Church Street, Orlando. So Church and Tampa. We got Church and Tampa in here. I'm not finding a Tampa. Let's see here. Church and Tampa. Church and Tampa.
Church Street?
Yeah, I found Church Street. Haven't found Tampa. Looking for Tampa. Let's see here. That's Norton. That's Tampa. Tampa right here. Church and Tampa. Let's take a gander, folks. Oh, this is honestly like the normal side of West Palm Beach, actually. And where are we supposed to be going from here, Matthew?
Start at Tampa and Church and head east.
All right, so we're heading east. They got a playground. They have a car lot, a parking lot. They also have, it's starting to get a little questionable here. We got Chico subs. We've got more buildings. Oh, holy smokes, folks. They were getting into something here. Golly, folks, breathing is tough these days, but you know what isn't tough? Getting a hood review in. And holy smokes, folks. That is a house. That is a whole house, folks. Holy smokes. Honestly, this place doesn't look too bad. This actually looks a lot like West Palm Beach, actually, funnily enough. Matthew can agree. I think he can attest to that. It looks just like Palm Beach, actually.
It kind of does. Honestly, I'll be honest, not dissing on the place. This is really not my type of place. I don't really like the look of it, really. I'm just going to be straight up honest. I wouldn't want to live here personally. Not dissing on it, but it's just not my thing. I like it to look a little bit more traditional than that.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's something.
He said Philip said you're going down Tampa, not Church.
Well, he said go east. I started going east. I think that was the way I was supposed to go. But beyond
Go
that,
westward, ho.
oh crap! Yeah, we did go west. I didn't go east. Hang on, let me go redo that then. Where was it? It was over here, and then we go to Church and Tampa, and then we head east, right?
Yes, head east.
So that would be down West Church Street, which is this way. So we go past the stadium this time. Oh, I see you know your hoods well. Good one. And you, sir, are you ready to receive my limp ghetto? How dare you, sir? How dare you underhand me and my... Oh, we got homeless camps. Oh, man. I'll tell you what. It's like that one block in Seattle. Holy moly, folks. It's like that one block. There's a giant open field over there. I think they call those parks in Europe, but we don't have those here in America. And let's see here, folks. All right. There we are. It is the hood. I wouldn't live in this place personally. I would agree with Matthew on that one. But I do think it wants to give her support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Rye Guy SR, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Rye Guy, for that support. They said, I'm glad y'all are back safe and sound and ready to give us the news.
And I thank you so much for the support. And we are back and ready to give the news. And I got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. Also, by the way, folks, I'm just following the instructions. I don't know if I did it correctly or not. From my understanding, I am, because that's Tampa and Church Street. He said go east. So we went down West Church Street that way. So that would be eastwards. I can't go up Tampa or any direction because that would be north and south. So I'm just following the directions that I was given. They said go east. I turned east, and I went east that way. So that's the best I could do right now, under the circumstances. You know what I mean? But anyways, with that, I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Dade Carnes, also known as Raid, who puts in a 10. And big shout out to you, Dade, for that $10 support. And thank you very much for helping to keep the channel running as well. I do not see a comment attached. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. Hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 super chat from Tim W. And Tim says, so nice to be on the West Coast and be able to listen to y'all live.
Hey, and it's great to hear that you're listening to us all the way from the West Coast. We love to know that we have viewers from all across America and around the world watching this channel every single time it's live. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to David Castillo, who puts in a 10. And big shout out to David. He said, asking for some clarity, I'm a little confused on how Putin could even invade the Baltics logistically. I feel like if he had enough troops to invade the Baltics, wouldn't he simply put more into Ukraine?
I would agree. Thing is, though, is that he doesn't actually have to win. He just has to force a possible nuclear confrontation and then settle it in a negotiated settlement where Russia achieves some aims. And then they just slowly keep repeating that over and over again until they get everything they want. That's largely how it'll work at this point, from what I'm seeing. But at the same time, that's a very good argument there that I've made in the past as well. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 super chat from AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in that 10. And thank you very much, AMX10, for that support. It said, live chat question, and I'm attending the Australia and New Zealand Armed Corps Dawn service tomorrow. It's a tribute to those who have served past and present in both those countries.
Oh, that's incredibly cool. That sounds a lot like Veterans Day here in the United States. And I got to thank you so much for supporting. I hope you have a fun time at that ceremony, because it's always good to respect the armed forces of your nation. And so with that, I thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And grabbing that live chat question, this one goes to David Tablet, who said, did you guys make a decision on the location of Enforcer HQ 3.0?
Not yet, actually. We're still looking around. Unfortunately, at this moment, the answer to that is no. Interesting 5-day trip, though. But both areas proved to be too expensive, unfortunately. But with that, I do thank you so much once again for support, helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a $10 super chat from Darren Quinn. And thank you very much, Darren. He said, welcome back. LSA, no Ruski or China, Iran or Fat Man Axis. Get well, Enforcer. Missed you guys. 3 years. Now kind of used to seeing you around. And TC, Matt. And Corgis. And off to Texas, boys. Off to Texas.
Hey, and I got to thank you so much for the support, and thank you for missing us. We love to know that loads of folks missed us. It lets us know that we have something to come back to. And I also got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. Maybe we'll end up in Texas someday. Who knows? But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Darren Quinn, who puts in a 10 once more and says, bye-bye, Wiener, man.
Ha ha. Bye-bye for now. He's most likely going to be working at the Shell gas station selling 4 Locos. But beyond that, I do thank you so much for
selling
support.
gas.
Selling gas and cigarettes, selling Newports. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this possible, and we wouldn't be able to outlive Le Hot Dog Man, who is now only a page in history. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Epic Trains Canada, who puts in a 10 and says, I would like your opinion on which is flatter, Miami, Florida, or Miami, Manitoba. Igor and Slav Ukraine.
Miami, Manitoba? Miami, Manitoba? What? Where is Miami, Manitoba?
Welcome to Miami.
Miami, Manitoba. That's where the people who own this place live. Let's go take a look. Miami. Oh, that's going to be flat. Let's take a look right outside of town. What does it look like out here? My God. Honestly, still not as flat as Miami.
Honestly, this would drive me bonkers living in a place like this.
This would drive me crazy. But look, there's an actual curvature to the surface. So it's not like Miami. Because Miami, Florida, crazily enough, there's no elevation features at all. Like none. It doesn't even like let me just drop y'all down here somewhere. Maybe on like a an interstate overpass where you can see it well. Look at that. There's no elevation features anywhere. It's literally perfectly flat as far as the eye can see. It just is unsettling, honestly, because I'm used to hills and stuff like that. And honestly, mountains. I love mountains. So seeing somewhere that flat, it was unsettling. It was disturbing to my soul. Also, flat as far as the eye can see. In both directions.
And also, why does this interstate stay so crowded? And also, why do the people drive so slow out here on this interstate?
Like, and also, why are they so aggressive?
Yeah, I drove all the way down from West Palm Beach in a rental car, which was a Chevy Malibu. And I'm not going to lie, I was driving the speed limit, but I was slinging that Malibu because the people were driving so stupid. It was like, what the hell? It's like, I've seen bad drivers. Like, Atlanta has some like chaotic drivers, but at least they know how to drive. Like, they know how to move. The people didn't know how to move in this place. Like, they just stayed in the fast lane. They stayed in all the lanes, clogging them up. And you would have to literally, like, you would just work your way through all the lanes constantly to try to get through that traffic that was going slow as Christmas. They were going under the speed limit.
Man, I started to joke that everyone pretended like they owned the place down there because that's how everyone would drive. They would drive like they owned the roads, like they were big hustlers or something. I was like, man, it's like not all of y'all can be. There's only a small amount of them. They got private jets out here at this airport. Oh, look, there's that one. But beyond that, it's like, yeah, all of y'all can't own the place. There's no way. But beyond that, I thank you for the support, helping this channel to keep it running. I hope that does address that well. And Matthew, how many super chats do we have left?
We have about 10 left.
Oh, nice. Because my bones are starting to ache, and I think this might not be an allergy sort of a thing anymore. So, with that, we are on to the next one.
Me bones are starting to ache, Mr. Squidward. My bones.
Yarr.
Our next one goes to Mike Garcia, who puts in the 10. And thank you very much, Mike, for that support. And he said, have y'all considered Indianapolis? NASCAR trains, guns, low cost of living, and northern parts of Fisher and Carmel are nice. Also, the Indian sand dunes are stunning. And good luck on the search in LSA.
I got to thank you for support. Where was that again, Matthew?
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. That's an interesting place. I never looked there before. Perhaps because it's a broad ripple on the map. But I do thank you for the support, and maybe we'll look around here sometime. That's an option. I've never looked at Indiana before. But I do thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kevin once again, who puts in a 10. And shout out to you, Kevin, for that second support of the night. We appreciate that. He said, is Enforcer Matt the guy behind Resonance Channel? Sounds similar. I'll be honest with you, I've never heard of Resonance Channel, but I've been told time to time that occasionally I do resonate with a few people, so maybe I am behind that channel, maybe. But thank you very much, Kevin, for the support, and we appreciate that very much. And we also have a 10 from Rye Guy SR, who says, so the hot dog man finally capitulated to the best news channel on YouTube. Great news, beautiful news, the best news, and LSA, and Loyal of the Republic. And thanks, guys, for being awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for the kind words. And it is great to know that the hot dog man's finally down and out. He's going to be taking a little permanent retirement there. Love to see it. But nevertheless, I thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
Also, by the way, someone said, did you not check the prices before you went to Seattle and West Palm Beach? I did check the prices, actually. We were looking on the outskirts of the place, just to make that clear. We weren't looking in downtown because we don't have millions to spend on that type of deal. And also, even if I had it, I probably wouldn't spend it there anyway because it seems like a waste. But honestly, though, we were trying to check out these places to get a gist of, do we like the area at all, to even live on the outskirts of it and sort of do the budget thing there. But even at the budget thing, honestly, I just don't see it being worth the cost. Because like I didn't care for the Florida area. First of all, I wouldn't live there even if it was cheap. But the Seattle area was really nice. I like the Seattle area. I like the mountains, but we got to find somewhere that's a little bit more on the affordable side, that you're not paying a super big premium to be near Seattle. Because honestly, I didn't care for downtown Seattle that much, but I did really like the suburbs area of Seattle. Like the suburbs area was beautiful. The mountains were beautiful in that mountain range out there. But I want it to be not so crazy expensive. And if it means being outside of Seattle or in a different city, I would go for that. But yeah, that's pretty much what we were going for.
Trying to find the camp. Let's see.
It was near the Central Business District.
Yeah. It's near the Central Business District. Yeah. Why does it look... Dude, honestly, like maybe it was overcast. Well, it was overcast the day we were there. This is looking real swell, actually.
Someone said, let's see, Snow White said, why leave Bama? Well, there's a lot of reasons to leave Alabama. First of all, honestly, even if you take Florida in consideration, there's more to do in Florida than there was here in Alabama. Even though it was flat, there was still more to do. I wouldn't be bored to death. And also, number two, there's actually places to go for young people where you can actually meet other people. There's really no places like that here in Alabama unless you're going to college. And I'm now out of college, so, that pretty much rules that out. So, honestly, just need to move somewhere where there's actually a place where we can actually have a life for young people. That doesn't exist here in Birmingham, at least from what I've seen. I'm sure it works for some people, but most of the people I have befriended up here, most of the stuff they do is usually go drinking. And I'm not that type of person. I'm not trying to get into that. So, looking for somewhere where it's not quite like that.
So then we looked at Miami, which really makes a lot of sense. And so I was like, man, I was telling Matthew that. I was like, dude, you don't like party or drink, and I don't either. Why would we move there? Like, why would we look at that? And he was like, oh, man, trust me, it's going to be nice. And then we went into downtown Miami, and dude, good luck getting out of downtown Miami. There's no way to get out of here, actually, once you get in there. Like, you're stuck for good. Where was that island, dude, with, like, the little bridge that went to it? Oh, here it was. Brick L Key. Right there. This is where we got stuck. Right here at this intersection, Matthew. Right there.
Who said I was moving to West Palm Beach for, that? I was moving to West Palm Beach for the older women.
What? Whoa. Whoa, look at that boiler. Whoa. Whoa. Also, by the way, here's the Brightline station here in downtown Miami. Actually, I don't think this is the Brightline station. I think it's somewhere else. Let's see here. Where is it? Where is the Brightline station? Where is the Brightline?
Someone said it's a land of prostitutes and druggies. Miami gave me that kind of vibe, by the way. Like it gave me like the drug central type of vibe
Sin
going
City
on right
kind
there.
of
I was like, and also the traffic in Miami is horrible. I mean, horrible. Like the downtown section, I literally went on the navigation. I was in the middle of downtown, and I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. Like I can't just stay in this gridlock anymore. Like I'm finished with this. I drove to that island out there at Biscayne Key or whatever, and then I turned around and the navigation said it would take me an hour to go 3 miles. I was like, "Are you joking?" I was like, "This is right." I had to tap the screen. I was like, "Okay, yeah, it really says an hour for 3 miles." I was like, "Get on the interstate, get the hell out," and that's exactly what I did. I drove straight out of Miami.
Man, there's sadly I can't find the parts of the interstate where you actually were able to see the surrounding area. And it was so flat, it was like mental. It was I've never seen a place this flat. Let me see if there's like a good picture here to show that. Nobody takes a picture behind the waterfront because I think everyone realizes that it just looks flat and it doesn't look cool back there. Dang, dude, it's so hard to find a picture looking back that way. Do you notice that, Matthew? Nobody takes a picture looking backwards.
Yeah, you don't want to ever really look backwards.
You only want to look forwards, like a real hustler, like Andrew Tate told us to look forwards. I'm not looking in the past. I'm living in the future. Man, and what do you say? What do you say about what was his very kind and polite take on a relationship in between men and women? What was it? Uh, this is escaping me right now.
He said something about put him to work.
I don't know what that means, folks, but I'm not for it. It's like, yeah, I'm not a simp, but honestly, that's pretty messed up right there. Anyways, with that, I hope that addresses that well, at least the best we can. And thank you once again for support. Help this channel to keep on running. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 5, and thank you very much, Sarge, for the support. He said, welcome back. LSA hit the like button. That's an order. He said, hope y'all had a safe trip. Jaga jaga, love Ukraine, and take one from the chat.
Hey, we did have a nice trip, and I gotta thank you for being here once again, LSA Sergeant Figment, and encouraging people to hit that like button. And we will make sure to take a live chat question. So what do we got, Matthew? What do we got?
And the live chat goes to Taylor McLean. He says, aren't the occupied lands in Ukraine is where the rare earths are located?
A decent amount of them, yes. They actually are within the occupied areas or very close to them. And so with that, I hope that has addressed that well. And thank you once again for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And, man, there's some wild stuff coming through in the chat. I'll tell you what. Can't move to West Palm Beach. I tell you what, they just gotta go somewhere else, like Seattle or something like that. I was told that Seattle had a good dating scene. Oh, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. Oh man, I'm telling you, I moved to West Palm Beach for the Cougars, and then, then I moved to Seattle for the dating scene. Oh dear, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. I get no respect.
Oh man,
but anyway,
oh man, I'm telling you. Oh man, I went to Miami to find a cougar. Oh man, all I found was bitches. Oh man, I'm telling you. Like, anyways, we're on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Eric Billiter. And thank you very much, Eric, for that $5 support. We appreciate that very much. He said, if put to a legitimate fair vote, what would the people in the occupied contested areas choose?
They'd probably choose to be back in Ukrainian control. That'd be the truth. But I do thank you for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Kevin, who puts in the 5 once again. And thank you very much, Kevin, for the support. He said Texas has no income tax, so I'll just throw that out there. And San Antonio is pretty sweet. But I will say this, Kevin. The only problem is it has no state income tax in Texas. But if you want to buy a house, you're going to pay exorbitant property taxes like you've never seen before in your life. Horrifyingly high property taxes. So Texas is getting you in a different way. They're just kind of conning you a little bit.
That's kind of what we found out about all states that don't have income tax. They just find a way to generate the revenue by other means. So while you think you're getting like a tax break, you're really not. You're just paying the taxes in a different way. But I do thank you for support, and that is a nice suggestion to bring up. And I think Matthew's getting unwell. Oh no. No. I'm gonna have to start texting him in the middle of the show. Stop sneezing. You're running the people away. But anyways, with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Alex Burleton, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Alex Burleton, for that $5 support. They said, welcome back. Missed you, and keep up the good work, and take one from the chat.
And we missed you all. And I got to thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to get a live chat in your honor. And so, what do we got?
And the live chat goes to Little Bear, who says, peace is a negotiation, and what has the USA asked Russia to give up?
We haven't asked them to give up anything, actually. There's been no consideration on the Russian side in this peace deal, which is why it's wildly unfair, and it's not really a compromise. It's more so just trying to push unfair terms onto the Ukrainians. And so with that, I thank you for support. I hope that has addressed that well. And also, I gotta say this, folks. This is going to be deep. This is going to be really deep, folks. I thought I'd share this with you all because this was a revelation that I had with Matthew. So, Seattle is a place that's politically oriented a certain way. I just wanted to share this really quickly. It is politically oriented a certain way. Y'all all know how it's oriented. And then Miami, or more so West Palm Beach, usually considered to be politically oriented another way. Let me check that, though. Let me check that. One second, folks. I want to make sure that I'm right on that. Actually, it looks like, yeah, it looks like I'm actually right. So, this area is considered to be kind of oriented another way, a different way. But you know something that I found out that was shocking about these two places? Both of them in some places had crippled infrastructure. They had homeless everywhere. And honestly, crazily enough, Seattle actually was nicer through most of it. Like in Palm Beach, what it was is that a small area was really nice, and most of it was really crap. But in Seattle, the downtown, which is the smaller part of it, it's all right. There's some places that are really crap in downtown Seattle, like we found that out this time. But then everything else is actually fairly decent. It's actually pretty nice looking around there. And it was interesting because I was like, wow. I was like, really? It doesn't matter. It really just proves to show when you go to these different kinds of places. You look at the supposed political differences and how it actually turns out in real life. They honestly all end up the same. Like, they honestly all have the same vices and problems. So it's like, does that really, that's another reason why we don't really get political on this channel. It kind of furthers the point. It's like, why get really political when you could vote for anyone? And it honestly almost turns out the same way. No matter what their policies are, you pretty much have the same things culminate in the end. It's just a different step of getting there. But anyways, I hope that addresses that well, at least the best I can. I thought that was an interesting revelation. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to none other than Ryan H., who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Ryan, for that support. He said, hello, enforcers, and welcome back. And Key West is the better part of Florida. The ocean breeze keeps the pollen at bay more than the mainland and LSA.
I got to thank you for the support, and maybe that'll be an idea. If it's not too expensive, maybe it's an idea, actually. And I thank you for the support and sharing that with us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to it's GXBX, who puts in a 5 and says, if you come to Texas, go to Austin or San Antonio because Southern Texas has more hills and only 2 hours from the beach.
Only 2 hours from the beach, the Gulf Coast beach. Austin or San Antonio? What do the hills look like around here? This is where the Battle of, oh my. Oh, man, I'll tell you, that was interesting. Oh, look, suburban sprawl. Damn, that's a lot of suburban sprawl. Look at that. It goes on forever. Oh, my God. Do you see this? Dude, there's like people on like 50-acre lots out here. Look at this.
Blanco.
My God, dude. I've never seen this before. Look at this shit. Like, I don't mean to diss on it, but, this is actually rough. Like, Blanco. I remember my Spanish teacher told me this was Blanco, but considering I'm an American and I speak God's country's English, I call it Blanco. Let's go take a look at Blanco, damn it. Oh, this looks like Alabama, actually, dude. Like, wow. Dude, I feel at home here. Barbecue on the Square, damn it. Oh, it's shut down in 2008.
Give me some of that barbecue on the square. Make it the barbecue on the sign because the sign is left.
Hill
liquor store.
Liquor. We got a whole store dedicated to liquor. My boy. I love to see it. Love to see it. Goodness gracious. This is like Rockford, Alabama. Literally just like it. Damn, son. Where'd you find this? Also, what is Sister Dale looking at? What you looking like, sister? Let's take a gander, huh? Whoa. Man, real ranch living out here. I tell you, man, this is where Dr. Phil sends those kids to the ranch. But goodness, man, this place is wild, man. It's near the Guadalupe River. Isn't that like a taco at Taco Bell? The Guadalupe?
Probably.
I think it is, actually. But golly. Wait a minute. Demolition Ranch. Hold up, is this like the Demolition Ranch? Is this Demolition Ranch, dude?
It could be. Let's see here. Trying to see something. Someone said in the live chat, he said, as Paul said, Enforcer Matt, you guys have to look around between 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. because you said you didn't see anybody. Cities are empty during the day. Two nice places I moved right into was Gangland at night. I told the Enforcer, I said, we need to walk through the drug den in Seattle, like at probably like 10 o'clock at night. We need to see how really safe it is because like you need to like test that kind of stuff out. Not really, though. We did drive around at night, but we didn't drive. Obviously, we didn't get out and walk through like a sketchy area. We weren't trying to get stabbed or something.
We were grilling them at night.
Say what?
We were grilling them at night.
Man, we weren't grilling nobody. I was in the Chevy Malibu whipping it through there because I was like, I'm not trying to get stabbed out here in like, Seattle or something like that. Then downtown Seattle had some sketchy folks like on the side of the street. They had some like folks that looked like they could get violent pretty quick. because they're just jumping around acting crazy and stuff. It was like, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm already dealing with that in Birmingham, Alabama, if I walk down the street in downtown. So I don't want to, go deal with that somewhere else. I just don't like that kind of crap. I'll be honest. Like, I feel for them. If they got some mental health issues, I feel for them. But at the same time, though, as a tax-paying citizen, I don't want to walk down the street and have to deal with that crazy shit or stuff. Excuse me. I don't want to deal with that. Like, I'm just dead serious. I don't like, work hard and pay taxes and stuff to walk down the street and feel like I'm going to get stabbed with a needle. That's not what I'm doing.
Man, and I tell you what, man, these people. Oh, here we go. We found them. This is a corner right here. Yeah, man, these people are crazy. They were like violent looking. And I tell you, man, they'd sit there, they poke you, kind of like those flight attendants said, don't poke them. You know what I mean? But these people will poke you, like they don't have any questions about it. They have trolley buses though in Seattle, which are pretty neat. They run on electric overhead wire.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. But this was like the drug pin corner right here. It actually wasn't that bad. And when this video was still picture was taken, but it was rough when we went through. There was like 12 or 14 people just standing in a huddle around there, and some of them were doing like that trank walk. So yeah, they were like gassing up. But beyond that, honestly, man, this is making Seattle look rough right here. I mean, like, damn, bro, when it's overcast, man, downtown Seattle, oh, dude, it looks like they're gonna throw fish at you. I
just don't like cities. Like, I think after seeing enough cities in America, and it's not just America, it's anywhere, I just really don't like cities. Like, for some reason, I feel like living in a city would be cool, but when I actually see it in real life, I'm like, I would rather live somewhere where it's just like, it looks beautiful and it's like a nice, smaller place. I just don't like the cities. Like, they're exciting for a minute, but they get old quick.
Man, I tell you, man, what I'd do is I'd ride in the train, the Amtrak to Seattle, and then I'd ride it out to somewhere else, like farther off in the country. That'd be a cool thing to do.
Yeah, maybe. I think I'd rather just live somewhere different, like maybe Spokane or something like that. I've never seen it, so I really don't know for a fact, but somewhere smaller and live outside of it where it's like a little bit of a drive to the city.
Spokane's on the map.
Yeah, I would never go back to Seattle personally, though.
Why not, man? You liked it. It looked nice. Like, get dropped
I
off.
like outside of it. I really just want to be in I want to be in the country.
He wants to be in God's country, like that SNL guy. He said, take me back to God's country. So he went back to, like, I don't know, Miami, which isn't really that much different than New York City. It's like, okay, dude, like, you think what you want, man. But man, it was a beautiful place out here. And there's this Snoqualmie River, dude, just winding around. The Novelty Bridge. It's a bridge of novelty. The Novelty Bridge. They didn't take any pictures of the river, though.
If honestly, like, my like whole dream situation would be getting a large piece of land, like up here in a place that looks like that, like you're looking at right there, and being able to build like a nice, moderately sized house on it, and having the place decked out to where you can pretty much like ride dirt bikes and stuff like that all over the property and go around it, like a little barn here and there, stuff like that. Maybe a couple of horses or something. That would be pretty cool to me. Like, that would be like pretty top notch. And I mean, some people are like, I would love to like buy a high rise condo in like the middle of downtown. Honestly, that sounds like hell to me. Like, that sounds horrific. Like, if you told me that, I'd be like, who would pay $10 million for that? I'd rather pay $10 million if I had it to go live like away from the city.
Man, look at this. This is in the middle of Idaho, Coeur d'Alene.
Not too bad.
Not too bad, yeah. I think it's quite nice, actually. I think you're just lying to yourself. But let's take a look around somewhere else, like Spirit Lake. That sounds like a Friday the 13th kind of a thing. Let's take a little look. Oh, this is Friday the 13th. Bro, you're gonna get jacked. like honestly, man, the hill people got eyes, and they got eyes on you, and also lasers. But
all eyes on me.
Man, when I said all eyes on me, everybody put their eyes on me. But anyways, let's take a look at Spokane. Oh, look at that! Wow, that's actually nice, bro. They got that cochinito taquiera, bro. That pig be psyched out. Man, this is actually a pretty cool place. Anyways, though, we do have to make sure to get through the remainder of these questions, because I'll be honest with y'all, folks, I actually think I'm sick now. Like I got the chills and everything going on. So, man, you were sitting right next to me on that tiny ass seat on that CRJ today. God bless. But anyways, with that,
I won't be getting anything.
"Aw, man, I'm not going to be getting anything," he says as he's already sneezing. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
I built up a resiliency for this type of thing. Like I've already gotten over one illness on the trip, and I just like got over it like in a couple hours. Like I'm honestly I'm fortified. But anyways, moving on to our next one here, we have a $4 super chat from Plazoth, and thank you very much, Plazoth, for that $4 support, and we do appreciate that very much. And we also have a 2 from Ryan H, who said, "Look up the Seattle Spheres. It's a neat building."
The Seattle Spheres. Let's pull it up. I don't know if we saw them while we were there. No, we did see these actually. Dude, we never saw these. Like, I think we were.
I never saw that at all.
Look at that. Those
Oh
are
wow,
cool.
that's actually pretty cool.
Dude, that's really neat. And they got like a little park outside with an Airstream selling food out of it. Dude, why did we see this place?
Amazon Go.
There's the Space Needle. Y'all wouldn't believe it. I'm going to tell y'all something. I wanted to go up the Space Needle. Matthew wouldn't. Like, he wouldn't go. So
Now, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't about to do that elevator. I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Matthew doesn't like elevators with like open glass sides to them. Like he doesn't like to see that he's moving up. Me, it doesn't really bother me too much, although it does feel kind of unsettling. But to Matthew, he does not like it. So we could not do this while we were there. But I wanted to go up because I wanted to see like the Olympics off in the distance, and then Mount Rainier over there in the back, and the whole city in the port of Seattle. It was really cool, kind of a view. But we sadly didn't get to do it. They got a giant Lego Space Needle though in their gift shop.
Now that is pretty cool. Now I would build the space like needle thing here, but they already have needles in the street.
Man, we said, man, it's $35 to go up the Seattle Space Needle. Why would we spend $35 when we can pick them up on the street for free? Like, dang! Like, man, really though, like that real question, why would we spend that money when we could get them for free? You know, one place I like, dude, I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna be like, what is wrong with you? You are stupid. I actually like this little industrial area down here. Let me show you this. And you'll know why when you see it. I like this little industrial area because it had trains right
You're
by
one
the
of those
road.
edgy people that likes to live right next to the train yard and stuff like that. Like they're really feeling like they're real industrious.
No, I'm not one of those people. I just like seeing the hoppers over here at this distribution center. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Dude, we're not going to ever be like those people that were living in this apartment block. I'm about to put someone on blast that's watching the stream right now. But I'm never going to be like the people living right there, like literally right by an active rail yard. I would never be that person because that would get so old fast, dude. Like, then these costed a lot. We checked; they were like $5,000 a month or something to look over a rail yard. Now I like trains, but when I go to bed, I don't want to hear them. And you would be hearing them all night long. Even if they didn't sound their horn, if there's like a no horn ordinance in the area, you're going to hear the engine shake the buildings. Like it's a horrendous thing. And like, you can just live right there, right up on it. It's like, hell no, I would never
they're
do
so
that.
fancy though. They're so fancy. They're hipsters though. They're hip living right next to the train yard. I tell you. But let's see. Someone said, George Chencher said, space needles greater than street needles. Honestly, man, the Seattle Space Needle is inspired by the street needle. Honestly, like it kind of must be.
Man, maybe so. And also, this is where they load up all the containers for the railroads to move out of Seattle. It was actually a really busy port while we were there. There was like some huge container ships moving around here. And they also had a cruise ship over here at one of the piers. It was a really busy port. And that's one thing I find really cool about Seattle is that it is a working city, Matthew. It is a city at work. That's what's cool about Seattle.
What do you think? The other cities just lazy cities or something?
Dude, tell me, where do you see a cargo ship in Miami, dude? Rather than that 110.
There's cargo ships in Miami. What are you, crazy?
Bro, there's no like, well, there's actually cargo ships in Miami.
Yeah, there's a port right there. And there's also cruise ports all over the place in Miami.
I don't know, man. In Seattle, it was a lot more visible. It wasn't hiding from you like at the end of an island down here. An island by it was like literally like in the middle of the city where you could see it from everywhere. Like that's what I found cool about Seattle, dude. Like look at this. Look at this. You can get up in this park right here, which we actually filmed a video in. And boom, you can see the port of Seattle over there. That's really neat. And the whole city.
That was crazy thing. We were standing right here just a couple of days ago. That's kind of crazy.
Dude, it was kind of like chilly and we were wearing shorts, which was a stupid idea. And you could smell the salt air. Don't you remember that, Matthew? It was like that. Like the salt air down in, up in Seattle smelled different than the salty air in Miami. It actually had a different smell, which was pretty neat. But up here, it smelled more like like the kind of salty smell you would like associate with like fishing ships, that kind of a thing. Like the little relaxing smell of the salt water down in Miami kind of reminded me a little bit of like the whole 30A, let's go to the beach and hang out kind of a thing. The salt water up in Seattle was about that business. The salt water down in Miami was about that relaxation, which I honestly respect. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And with that, folks, that's actually our last super chat of the night. So it's now time to jump onto our live chat questions and grab a few of those as well. Also, somebody's talking about the island boy. They fell off and they're fighting washed up celebs. Those are some, I don't know really what's the right word to describe those individuals, but just debauchery, going wild, just disgusting individuals. So I think I'll just leave it at that. But jumping into our live check questions and our Morse code decoders of the night, we had tonight Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Kevin J, Paul Schultz, Dave Millsap, Roy Fluffiness, Arabelle Garbo, Johnny Dog, and Norm Pritchett. They said the Morse today reads, "We are LSA, and not a moment sooner. Thank you for being patient, LSA."
And that's the sound of money. Y'all got that dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. And I got to congratulate y'all for getting that correct time and time again, because no matter what, y'all continue to get that dead on the nail every single day for thousands of days at this point, nearly. And so with that, it's time for us to get on into some live chats. Due to time constraints tonight, very sad about that, and very sorry that we weren't able to get to a lot of live chats. We are only going to be addressing 3 live chat questions, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Paul Schultz, who says, what escalation action can Russia or Putin take without triggering NATO?
I really don't know. I think they're honestly at the absolute limit of what they can do at this point. So I would say just about nothing, actually. But that would be my opinion, so I could be wrong. But I hope that addresses that somewhat well, at least in my opinion. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to AF Kaplan, who says, can the European countries that have Patriot systems send them to Ukraine without U.S. government permission?
Really, they can't, because the U.S. denies them the ability to transfer them. Those countries may see that they are not able to purchase U.S. weapons again. And considering that a lot of countries are reliant on U.S. weapons currently, although they're shifting away from that, that could be a death knell for their national defense. So probably not. And so with that, I hope that is addressed that well. We are on to the final question of the night. And so who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is David Tablet, who said, do we know what types of munitions were being stored at the arsenal that exploded?
Generally a wide variety of munitions. It was a general purpose munitions facility, so it can house really any kind of munitions. So quite literally anything. It could be 81 millimeter mortar shells. It could be anything all the way up to the 250 millimeter. Actually, it could be all the way up to the Teal Pond, which I think is like a 270 millimeter mortar. So it could be anything in between. It could even be cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, you name it. It could have been at that facility. So quite literally anything you name, it could have been in the Growl. It could have been in the 51st Growl facility. And so that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got actually, we have a $20 super chat from Danny B, who said, good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here. Sorry I'm late. Glad y'all are back. And while y'all are gone, I've been doing some classes I got to get done before I open. And hey, thank you for being here tonight, Danny B. And I got to thank you so much for the support. And it's good to hear that you've been busy while we've been gone. It's good to hear that the official chef of the LSA has been keeping themselves occupied with working hard to be the best chef in the world. And of course, the best chef in the LSA. And of course, we're happy to have you back, Danny B. We're happy to be back. We absolutely love being here. And I got to thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would not be able to make this channel possible and keep it rolling. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we have actually reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching. If y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news from around the world. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again tonight on our big return to the stream. Once again, and all 73,000 people that joined us tonight. And we will see you tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next night of War News streams. And with that, folks, Slava Ukraine, Hero Slava. It's good to be back and good to see you all once again. And with that, good night.